Hey everyone, this is Unleashed with Scarlett Johnson, presented by Moms for Liberty. And I'm here with my friend Cory Brewer, who is an attorney with Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty, and Will for short. And Will does magnificent work across the state of Wisconsin and across the country. You guys have what's just the last case that you submitted amicus brief?
Oh, what is the most recent one? I would have to double check what is the most recent, but I know
All the big ones.
Yeah, we submitted an amicus brief on behalf of some Wisconsin parents and students in the girls' sports cases that are at the United States Supreme Court right now. So that's a big one.
I should know this because I was there. It was amazing. It was amazing few days. I got to watch them when they were meeting with members of Congress. They had a press conference afterward. I got to attend some events, and then at the rally outside of DC for 8 hours. And several of the girls got to go in to the courtroom. I didn't want to do that because you can't bring a camera and you can't talk or say anything. I probably, listening to it afterward, I would have been like, I want to say something. But you've got to, it's very respectful, right? Like dress Sunday best. I love that it's one of the institutions where everyone doesn't like roll out of bed in their like sweatpants like they,
Oh yeah.
Like Sean Duffy would say, the way that people get on airplanes, which I do agree with him. Come on, people. Like, you can be comfy in your Lululemon or Athleta or something. That's fine. But do we have to look like we literally rolled out of bed in pajamas and slippers? We can do that. Little kids, okay. My daughters, they were at least in clean pajamas, and I'd make that like we're in their tennis shoes, so I get it.
Yeah. We have exceptions for the kids.
Yes. Yeah. But adult men who don't have kids in pajamas, like you can do better than that. Come on. And ladies, like you never know where you're going to meet that special someone. That's what I tell my daughters. Like,
oh, no kidding. Yeah. We don't have that at the United States Supreme Court. No. It's the decorum and the formality is certainly there. So, yeah, it's pretty cool. I've had an opportunity to listen to oral arguments a few years ago. This time around for the Title IX girls sports case, I had listened to the live streamed audio. But yeah, that's going to be a big one.
Yeah. I listened to it on the airplane ride home, and then I even you want to listen to it again sometimes to really take it all in. And I, some of the Supreme Court justices used the pronouns, and I didn't love that, but I loved that, Clarence Thomas did not do that. To me, you just say the name and you try to, I wouldn't go out of my way to be disrespectful, but I really want to stay true and not use pronouns. But as lawyers, I know it gets tricky. Lawyers, judges, like you're just trying to hear the case and not make it personal. But I thought it was just very interesting because both of the lawyers that were, what were they? They were the plaintiffs. Both of the plaintiff lawyers really conceded the fact that, yeah, there's a difference between males and females, and it should not be universal that just simply identifying qualifies you to play on a sex-separated athletic team. That's what they say there because they're in front of the world. They're in front of these judges, and they want that narrative because that's what they say, but that's not at all how it looks when these policies are in schools. The administrators, as you know, in Westosha, in Sun Prairie, how they don't know what to do. So it's a free for all. They aren't sure where the lines are. So they're either they're like a more conservative area in Wisconsin, like Waukesha, where they'll say, no, we are following Title IX, we are following Trump's executive orders. Title IX definition of sex is male and female. We do not allow men in women's bathrooms or boys in women's bathrooms or boys in women's sports, period. They're following, and there's a lot of other school districts like that. And there's Sun Prairie, there's Westosha, there's any school in Madison, in Milwaukee, MPS, where if a boy just says I identify as a female, they're pretty much letting them use the facilities they want to use if they push it, and they'll let them on whatever team that they identify with.
And I'm glad you brought up Sun Prairie and Westosha, because those are actually the students that our amicus brief to the United States Supreme Court was on their behalf. And it doesn't have their names, they're minors, so it only includes initials. But those were cases where we submitted federal complaints to the Office for Civil Rights alleging violations of Title IX, which is also Title IX is the legal issue in the West Virginia versus BPJ case. And we represent a group of parents called the Empowered Community Coalition. And we wanted to really get that in front of the court to say, look, this is a real issue that's impacting young girls. And the cases where we're involved aren't specific to athletics, but they're in the locker room. They're in the, changing for gym class, changing after a swim unit in the girls' athletic locker room. And here we have boys in the girls' spaces in schools. These are young girls. And where are the adults? Where are the administrators that are protecting their privacy? And I'm hoping we get some clarity from the highest court here to, support these girls and their athletics, but also in their private spaces too.
The Sun Prairie case, that first, actually Dan Lunnington, an attorney with Will, and I just found out he's also now a professor.
Yes, he teaches at UW-Madison Law. Yep.
Now I need to go back and finish my law degree.
I hear his class is very popular. Yeah.
LSAT, I did 1 year, had my son. I was always going to go back, and then I had 4 more kids. But I'd have to do the LSAT over and start right from the beginning. At this point, I'm like, I'll tell. When I went to Marquette, we had in my law class, there was a woman who was 72 getting her law degree. And she was a grandmother, and she just said, I've always wanted to do this, and I've decided to do it. So there's still a chance.
There is a chance. Yes.
You never know. I haven't forgotten how to read the case. I might forget, oh God, the thought of taking the law school exams. Because in law school, I don't know, people probably don't know this, but at least that's the way it was, especially with criminal law, constitutional law. Like, you had one test. It was there's like a tiny participation grade where they were still doing the Scott Turow, Socratic method. So you lived in fear until they called you, and then you thought, okay, they won't call me again for a little while. But where you kind of get grilled, and you have to prepare, and you're just scared to be called on. But you have one test. That's your whole grade, one test, and
no pressure. Yeah.
No pressure. But but it was fun. Mock trial. I would throw up every time I was about to have to speak in mock trial. That's that I hated public speaking. Believe it or not, I was so afraid to speak publicly and so nervous. I would get really sick. So I think I'd rock it now.
There you go. You gotta just power through it, get that practice. And
what made you decide to go to law school? What?
Oh, my story is a little interesting, maybe not to some, but I don't have any attorneys in my family. What sparked the idea for me was, this is a little silly, but TV shows and movies. I wanted to be a judge. I thought, you know what, that looks fun. It looks like something I would enjoy. So I shadowed a couple attorneys in my community and thought, okay, I could see myself doing this, as a day-to-day kind of career. So I went to law school and didn't know exactly what area of the law I would want to practice in. So got a few years in, litigation, some personal injury, medical malpractice, different types of litigation, great experience. And then ended up here. I've been here for almost 4 years now doing constitutional law, administrative. And then for me, it's with a focus on K-12 education. So
why did you think I want to work at Will? You wanted to do some good? Did you want to work in public service? I know there's a need. My Lord, there is a need. We need more and more and more attorneys because the left has so many.
Yeah, I've always had an interest in the area of constitutional law. I also love my home state of Wisconsin. I thought that if I wanted to do this type of law, I would have to move to Washington, D.C. or go somewhere else. So to have the opportunity not only to practice in this area, where we're talking about First Amendment freedoms, equal protection, Title IX, these very, very important and impactful issues, and especially in K-12 education, parents' rights. I mean, there's just so much going on right now, and as a mom of 4 now, it's even more meaningful, I think, trying to give kids, school choice, give them the best opportunity at an education. So to have Will here in Wisconsin, that has a Wisconsin impact, but also kind of a national presence, has just been a blessing, just such a good opportunity for me. But also I hope that what I'm doing, is having an impact for others as well.
I always wanted to be a lawyer. So it was like not a ballerina, although I did want to be a solid gold dancer for a little bit, like because when I was a little girl, I loved dance. But because I think my dad was Marine and very political. Like he watched the news, loved Reagan, took me to the 1984 when I was little. I don't really remember it, but there's pictures and even some Reagan Bush signs, 1984. So he took me to a rally when he was in Wisconsin, and I went to school wearing a Reagan button, and the school said I had to take it off. So my dad came in and was like, "This is free speech. My daughter can wear." I was 4 years old in K-5, and I was like, I can wear. And I was telling kids on the playground that if they vote for Democrats, they got to tell their parents not to vote for Democrats. So it's been like in my blood, like this is what I want to do. And I wanted to go to DC, and I wanted to like, I didn't want to be a politician, but I wanted to change the world in some way, just like, just kind of fight. Like I so believed. And then, when I was 16, my dad called me from work and he said, "Turn on AM radio." And it was, I don't know if it was still 11:30, but you got to listen to this guy. It was Rush Limbaugh, and never stopped. 16, like every day, I would record on a cassette. Every day, listen to Rush Limbaugh, and was in College Republicans. And
Wow.
yeah, I was like, I want to. So I loved it. But then I had my son, and I loved something else more. And and then Navy wife, we kept moving. And I thought that ship sailed. I'll never be in DC. I'll never get involved in politics. Like, so I'll just, be a mom. And I always listened and always talked. And my son, when he was 3, would say Rush Limbaugh and all that. But here you go. And this is what second act. Now my kids are older, and I'm in DC. I'm a new media reporter doing so I think to women that it's never too late. You can prioritize your kids for a little bit, although I think it's a lot better for my daughters. Like my daughter's able to be a nurse, and she can work, and she wants to work, but she can be home, and she can be home like there's more flexible working Monday through Thursday, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Do you see that in the legal field? Do you think it's easier for working moms now? Is it as tough as it used to be?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I hope that there's some more kind of like a family friendly,
Will is.
atmosphere. Will is. Yes, Will absolutely is. Values family life. A lot of the attorneys here have kids, young kids, and
Yep.
it's interesting too because we're all so passionate about the work that we do and the cases we take on that even though we have the flexibility, we're still working just as much. It's just different times of the day and we make it work and we're passionate about the work and we get it done. And it's just a really great atmosphere. I think some law firms are like that too. It probably depends on where you are. Like any professional career, just got to find the right fit. And I know this is not why I'm on this podcast, but I think that moms, there's this message out there that like, you can do it all. You can't do it all and you don't have to feel bad that you can't do it all. I have, like I said, 4 kids myself, and I'm realizing that that's just not realistic and it's okay.
Yep.
Be there for your kids. You want to do the best that you can for them, but if there's a career you love, then do that too. And
Yes.
I think, you want it to be fulfilling and feel meaningful as much as possible.
There's different paths to get to the same place. I took a different path to, and I really appreciate what I do. I think I have some experience that a 20-year-old doesn't have. But to what I'd say, if you're in your 20s and worried, I really want to get married and have kids, but I should wait to have kids till I'm like 35. Don't do that because your body is not going to work with you with that always. Have kids and find a way. Like life finds a way. If you're passionate about something, you'll find a way. You just be diligent. Try and find a place where it can be friendly. If you have to take some time off, take some time off, and then go back in. There's kind of this wasn't the direction I was going to go, but it's when I look at what's happening in Minnesota, when I see the demographic of folks, of mostly women that are on the far left. I'm not trying to say Democrat, Republican. I'm saying so far left that there's this message that don't get married, don't have kids. It's like it's a jail sentence. And the view, just a view of just a devalued view of life, and also a denial of, I think, kind of your feminine instincts to want your maternal instincts, and they're being transferred the wrong place. But I think we do, as conservatives, need to talk about these things more. Talk about, as women, that we have kids. You have very young kids, and you're happy, you're married, and you have beautiful children. You're doing a job that you love. That this isn't some oppressive patriarchy where we all have to stay home and
Yeah.
that's not the male. Our husbands who are conservative are not like all these oppressive jerks. It's this, to defy that character and to talk about things more. And I love that Will is a free speech organization that fights for the traditional values of Western civilization. I wouldn't say they're not far right. They are not. They're not trying. Will's not ideological, just constitutional. And
we're a nonpartisan organization. One of the things I really appreciate, and I have ever since I've been working here and even following Will before that, is how committed we are, and especially our founder and president, Rick Essenberg, just the commitment to the rule of law and constitutional principles. I
have so much respect for him for that. That he's willing to say something unpopular. That to me is the biggest sign of integrity. You may not agree with it, but he's going to say what he believes to be true with his experience, which is extensive regarding the law. Like it or leave it, he's a constitutionalist and a free speech absolutist. And I respect that a lot.
Yeah. Likewise. And I think that's really important in this day and age, is to go back to the law. It's not the most fun thing to do. And it, like you said, it's not always the most popular, but I think that's where the common ground is. That is where just being reasonable. And, you know, this Constitution is there for a reason. We've had it for this long. You know, we're coming up on the, let's see if I can say this right, semi-quincentennial of our country, right? So
Right.
I think going back to those constitutional principles is key. And it's always the center of our mission in all of the cases and matters that we get involved in.
Now, I want to talk about a story that just went viral for you. And did Pat Garrett put together the video that was on YouTube?
Oh, that was our storyteller, Katerina Velasquez. But yes, our comms director, Pat, was part of it too.
I've worked with Katerina that was great. So there's a video, and I'll find it while you're talking, but it was done really well. And it's like your first kind of TikTok-y video where like you're kind of, I know how that goes. Like you have the background and you're talking and it's green screen behind you.
Yes, that was new for me. Uh-huh.
But it went viral. And Pat Garrett, who's your comms director, right?
Right.
Great guy. Love him. He's from Iowa. Go Iowa. Stay red. He said, he told me that this is probably your most watched social media post ever. And so we'll play it.
I think it was yours before that too.
Yeah. It's huge. It was huge. So but the story is really why it went viral, because the visual was something that kind of like made your heart kind of hurt. So talk about it and I'll bring up the video.
Yeah. I think the reason why it got so many views is it's just resonating with a lot of people. I'll kind of give just a brief overview of what it shows. So we're representing a mom right now who posted a TikTok of a school concert, and there were children on stage. Her daughter is disabled. She's in a wheelchair, and you can see the class is in the middle of the stage on risers with the teacher in front of them, and our client's daughter in her wheelchair, she was 4 years old at the time, is off to the side. Her peers are singing. She's not singing. The teacher's not really including her. And our client wanted to share this and it says it right in the video, this is the moment we decided to homeschool.
Mm-hmm.
And she kind of included in the caption why she was disappointed, how she felt her daughter wasn't included. And that was it. And by the way, that initial TikTok, that went viral at the end of December 2025, right after she posted it.
Wow.
So yeah, that
and then what happened after it went viral?
After that went viral, we can get into this, but long story short, law enforcement showed up at her house and said essentially, hey, do you want to take this down? You don't have to. You have a First Amendment right to keep it up, but can you think about maybe deleting this? It went viral. The school, she didn't mention the school. She didn't mention the teachers' names, or the teacher's name or anything like that. But
area of Wisconsin. This is
Pittsville, a very small community. She was not expecting this. I don't think any parent would be expecting this. She didn't say anything threatening, harassing, defamatory, untrue. And the reason why that's important is because she didn't take it down after the first visit from law enforcement. They came back to her house. The officer came back to her house again, same afternoon, said, hey, I noticed you didn't take that post down yet. Do you want to think about taking it down? Again, you don't have to. So he was our client wants us to say he was very polite. He was very professional. And by the way, I want to be clear, he was sent there by the school district and the school district's lawyer. They're the ones that said, hey, let's have law enforcement go see if she'll take this down. So they didn't go on their own, but I've said this in other videos or interviews. If I were in their shoes, law enforcement, I would not have gone at all. But here they are trying, just to, in my view, intimidate or pressure her to take this post down. For what? She didn't say anything untrue or defamatory. She ended up setting it to private after that second visit, same day. And the officer said that this would happen if she didn't take it down. Same day, she receives a cease and desist letter from the school district lawyer, saying that she made a defamatory and threatening, harassing post. And if she doesn't remove it and cease speaking about the school district, that they will think about filing a lawsuit against her. And also they've let staff know that if they feel that they need to take legal action, that's an option as well. So here you have a mom that posted a simple TikTok. This is the moment we decided to homeschool, who's now being intimidated with law enforcement and school district lawyers to basically suppress her freedom of expression, her speech.
And school district lawyers, they can use funds, tax dollars. They can use, they don't have the same sort of financial, there's a staff attorney, but they'll go out and they'll hire a firm if they were to do something, and it's not coming out of their home bank account. It's going to be paid for by the school district, whereas your client, to defend herself, to go to court, like, she's going to either need to find a public interest law firm, or she's going to be liable for tens of thousands of dollars in legal expenses just to defend her First Amendment rights. And lots of times people aren't aware or willing to call you and to kind of be public. And so they'll just take it down. Because I just don't want the trouble.
Yeah, I think that's important for a few reasons. One is that exactly what you pointed out, school districts, how do they pay their attorneys? This is a government entity, tax dollars. So in this case, and we've had another case similar to this, where the school district, they hire an attorney to threaten a parent to stop speaking, and using taxpayer dollars.
That was in Madison. There was another case and then in Sun Prairie, they tried to charge you guys an exorbitant amount of money, just
over $11,000 for an open records request. I mean, in my view, totally inappropriate. But the other thing about the kind of imbalance of power that you pointed out, like, most parents, that it's scary to have a police officer show up at your door. It's scary to receive a threatening letter from an attorney. Most parents don't know exactly what their rights are or what they should or shouldn't do. So it is very intimidating, and I think it does chill speech. So I am grateful to our client. She likes her community. She posted on Facebook recently, saying the district didn't even try to talk to me first before they started using these tactics. We like our community. We wanted to speak about homeschooling and inclusion, and we're met with threats in response. So, I'm grateful that she's willing to tell her story, because not only then do we get to hold this school district accountable for what we believe is a First Amendment violation, but I want to let other parents know as well that you can advocate for your kids. You shouldn't be afraid to speak out.
And I hope that school districts are watching and realize the first thing that you should do is reach out and have a conversation and say, how can we resolve this? How can we make this right? But let's show the video so the people know what we're talking about, because to see it, we're just talking about it, but I really think it's good to see this little girl, because it's kind of so wrong. But all right, I'm going to bring this up. This full screen. All right, I have it up. All right, bring up. Let's watch it.
The video you're watching here sparked national attention after it went viral on TikTok. A Wisconsin mom says her disabled daughter was pushed off to the side during a school music program, but what happened next is even more troubling. After the mother posted the video and said she was considering homeschooling her daughter because of what happened, police showed up at her doorstep. She was asked to take the video down. And then the district hired an attorney to threaten her with a defamation lawsuit simply for speaking about what happened to her child. Parents have the right to speak up for their children. Using legal threats to silence a parent is outrageous. That's why the Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty is stepping in to defend her First Amendment rights. If you want to learn more, head to will-law.org.
So that, like, you can see the little girl, that's like just sweet little girl there, kind of off to the side. And my gosh, if it was me, sure, their mom was nice, because I might have stormed up. My kids are like, you probably would have gone up there and started like, what is going on here? She's just a little girl, and just put off to the side and not felt included. And I'm sure that wasn't the first incident. I don't, without knowing the facts, I would bet that mom, those parents can say, we've had issues, and this was kind of the last straw for us. And, there are a lot of parents across this country and in Wisconsin that their kids with special needs, those needs are not being met. And there's a lot of reasons why, but it needs to change. And she's just saying, if you can't meet my child's needs, then I may have to just homeschool, because someone has to do this. And I'm the parent, and I'm going to take on that role if you're not going to do it. And as you and I both know, there is a lot of funding allotted for special needs. I've done the research in Wisconsin, and under Evers, it has probably more than quadrupled the amount of dollars that are supposed to be spent, federal, state, and yet time and time again, all I hear from parents with kids of special needs is how the teachers are overwhelmed, they're understaffed. I just talked with a para and a special needs teacher that told me things that are absolutely shocking. I'm waiting to talk more about that until she's more comfortable. But needless to say, she is 20 years special ed teacher, and the things that she was communicating to me, and she is in a suburban school district that has adequate funding. She's ready to blow the whistle, and I've actually told her to call you, because she is seeing violations of state and federal law all the time with kids with special needs.
Mm-hmm.
She's even being told to not report, that she thinks that these are kids that need more testing, and they're basically saying, no, don't do that. Like, don't report kids. Don't tell the parents, because if the parents find out, then they're going to advocate. And this is from admin. So this is happening. It's real. And we need to address it. This is a nonpartisan issue. Democrats and Republicans should come together and really get to the bottom of what's going on with special education in Wisconsin and across the country.
I think, yeah, and there's things we can do now to make a difference. Like you had mentioned, she's being told not to involve parents. Like, aren't we seeing that theme in any number of different areas? Like, isn't that something we could do now that could improve so much? Like, involve the parents in how your child's doing academically, behaviorally. Will has handled parental rights cases involving secret gender transition policies in schools. You got to involve the parents. 99.9% of the time, the parents love their children more than anyone else and want what's best for them. To have a policy that defaults to the side of having them uninformed or not telling them how their child is actually doing, it's wrong legally and morally, in my opinion. And I think most teachers actually would love to communicate more with the parents and have a good
Yes.
relationship with the parents. And most parents in turn generally really like their children's classroom teachers. So there's this opportunity here to have it be less adversarial, more collaborative, more communication. You don't have to change any laws for that to happen. You might have to change some local policies where teachers are directed not to speak and communicate with the parents. But that's kind of like an overarching theme, whether you're talking about special education or just overall communication with districts and parents. That's one thing that I think could be really, really improved now without any change in the law.
So I'm going to put you in contact because this teacher, she's a veteran. She's amazing. And she said that she told me, we were with our Moms for Liberty group, and she came, she was like, I'm so happy to be here. I have, I have somewhere to talk and to tell you what's happening. She said that she's like, you know what? I've decided I'm going to probably lose my job, but I'm going to tell the parents. I said, if you lose I have attorneys for you. You will not lose your job. If you tell parents that you think that their 4 or 5-year-old child has possibly special needs and needs an IEP, and that you lose your job or you feel like you're going to, then I have attorneys for you to talk to, because that is not legal. That's wrong. Or I think it is. It sounds to me. And that's why we need the Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty. Every state needs something like this because, and she's a teacher. She didn't know. She said, you know what? I'm just going to have to lose my job. And I was like, heck no, you don't need to lose your job for doing your job. You are a mandatory reporter. It is your job. You are a special ed teacher. If you see something, even if you maybe you're wrong, but you have to go with your instincts that have been honed for the last 20, 25 years of working with kids. And you shouldn't feel like you can't do that. And then another teacher was there and said, I wish I didn't have to join my union. And I'm like, we're in Wisconsin. You don't have to join your union. She said, I don't. I mean, Cory,
yeah, that's a whole other issue, isn't it? Oh my goodness.
yeah. I'm like, can I put you in touch with Teacher Freedom Alliance? They're going to have this big convention. Yeah. And she's like, can I see the website? And I sent it to her and she said, I'm going to send this to all the other teachers. She said, are they partisan? I'm like, they're nonpartisan. Now, listen, you'll see a lot of conservatives there, but spread the word. There's no litmus test. You don't have to bring a photo. You're not supposed to take a photo of how you vote, but you don't have to be a card carrying Republican. This is just team sanity, and we all want a good education. One of my daughters goes to Mequon-Thiensville Public School, and I can guarantee you most of her teachers, we are not ideologically aligned, and they are good teachers. I have a good relationship with them, and I think the school has improved greatly over the last 5 or 6 years. And I would like to say that I have had a hand in that, but with a lot of other parents. And it started started off sometimes bad. I ran for school board and lost, but I didn't stop. And I decided to not be so overt and to try to just talk and show them that I'm just a parent who cares about my kids. And if you care about the kids you're teaching too, then we've got a lot in common. And it's going very well. So I think we can't come into these relationships in an adversarial way. You have to be willing My thing, it's been doing this. Hi. Hi. Oh, wait, hold on a second.
Now my
I'm
dog.
going to take you down because I'm finishing up with somebody else and my computer went a little wonky. So hold on.
Oh, perfect. Are you live streaming or are you recording?
Recording. So just hold on. This has been doing this. I think I told my husband I'm going to go today. I think I have to get a new computer. My storage, I have to delete storage. It's like, I think it's at capacity and now it's doing some wonky stuff.
Yeah.
Anyway, so like we can finish up like, I will start the recording again. I don't even know where I left off, but it doesn't have to be adversarial. So
Yes.
your response to that and I'll get, all right, here we go. Okay. Yes.
Yeah,
So it doesn't have to be
I think you're
adversarial.
totally right. I think parents want a collaborative, relationship, not only with their kid's classroom teacher, but with the school district. And just to go back to the case that we're handling right now, to not have that, conversation. And what our client has asked the school district to do in this situation, by the way, this is in our letter to the school's lawyer, is reflect on the situation and how they're going to handle these types of conflicts, if you even want to call it a conflict, but the issue that the school has with the post here on social media, how are they going to handle these going forward in a way that respects parents' rights and respects parents' rights to advocate and speak out for their kids and grandparents too. I mean, we don't want government entities like school districts, like law enforcement, acting in a way that chills protected speech. And our client's speech in this issue, this TikTok post, plainly protected by the First Amendment. So that's why Will is involved. And what we're hoping for is that they drop this legal threat against our client.
So what's the status right now? That you're hoping that just they come to an amicable.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of twofold. So on the one hand, we've heard from the school district's lawyer. We don't have a resolution yet, but we're hoping that they drop the threat against our client. We want this to de-escalate.
Mhm.
But at the same time, our client is exploring all legal options to protect her constitutional rights and hold the school district accountable. So we don't want to have to file a lawsuit. We want the school district to say, we're not going to sue you for what you said because it's not defamatory. But we will see. We would love to see it de-escalate and have her rights respected.
Yes, me too. I love that my case was cited
in our press release.
In the press release, you have
Yes.
a 4-page, and I'll show that at the end. But yeah, my case regarding free speech and defamation, my 3-year struggle was cited, and so that's the first time I've seen it, and it made me feel really good to know that
There's precedent.
There's
Yeah.
precedent now. There's going to be so many more families and people protected. Their free speech will be protected, regardless of their political opinion or their opinion regarding their school district or president or whatever. You are allowed to have that opinion, even if it offends someone else. You're allowed to have that opinion. And you're allowed to express it. And we don't want to live in a world where that is not the case. It won't be. We had a little peek behind what that world looks like during COVID, and we don't want that again. Ever.
Yeah. Speaking of that, before I even joined Will during COVID, we had a federal lawsuit where a student had law enforcement show up to her door because of something she posted online related to COVID. I mean, yes, these are the First Amendment rights that we're here to protect. We don't want our society to drift in a way where the government is intimidating people, suppressing speech, pressuring them to delete things from, these, we don't want to live in that world.
Nope.
Like you said, whether we agree with the speech or not, if it's protected speech, is protected speech under the Constitution. And that's such a core principle.
Yes. Even if it's like, there's a lot of stuff being said right now, regarding lots of different issues, and I don't love it, but they have the right to say it. And probably the only, when in school, when what we see, it's funny, some of the things I'm seeing in Wisconsin, because there's about to be I think tomorrow is supposed to be this big walkout day where students are going to walk out of class. But it's being promoted by teachers unions and administrators and teachers. So that's where kind of, I'm not sure where that goes, the influence of children and kind of stating, you can have your political opinions, but to sort of keep, like, there's the situation, where was it, that just happened during the spring, the spring of last year, 2025, where in a school district, they had the social studies class where the kids had to post on a sticky note in the hallway.
Middleton.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that was a big story. They had to post sticky notes in the hallway where they leaned left or right and what political party they affiliated with, and write their name on it, put it in like as an assignment, enter it as an assignment, and then it was in the main hallway of the high school where everyone could see it. And there were kids that felt really intimidated. They didn't want to do that in Middleton, which is near Madison, Wisconsin, and it's a very progressive area. So kids that were more conservative were nervous and they didn't want to participate, and they felt that they would be bullied. And so that would, there's instances like that in schools. And I know that you guys were talking to parents. I don't know. I don't think anything came of that, but that's parents just having the resource to talk to attorneys, to get legal opinions, to say, just advice. Should we write a letter? What should we do? How should we handle this? There's so much need.
Yeah, we do a lot of that. I'm glad you mentioned that, because, sometimes when we take on an issue, it is a lawsuit, but more often than not, it's not. Like here, we wrote a letter and we'll see what comes of it. Other instances, someone might contact us and we'll make a recommendation or say, well, here's something you could do on your own. Here's where you want to look. Here's another referral for you for more resources. So we're happy to help out as much as we can with those types of things as well. But I mean, on the issue of, like, frankly, there's indoctrination going on in our classrooms.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think anyone's going to really, deny that.
Yes.
We know it's happening. It's not happening in every school. It's not happening in every classroom by any means, but like it is going on. And I've talked to so many teachers. There's no reason for that. You don't need to let your students know what your political beliefs are. You're an authority figure in that classroom, and that's going to influence them. And these are children. It's a captive audience. Robert Pondisio has written on this, some really good pieces. I just think it's wrong. And like one of the things Will also does is we have model school board policies for any school boards in the country. Some are Wisconsin specific, many are not. But we have one on, controversial issues in the classroom, controversial or political signage in schools. And they're all free. Schoolboardpolicies.org is probably the straight shot way for people to kind of look at those. But, if you're on a school board and you have teachers that are pushing these, one-sided is the big thing. Like if we're presenting all sides in an unbiased way, okay, but the reality is that's not typically what's happening. But school boards, you are the governing entity for that local government, school. And you can put some guardrails on this and make sure that, we want our kids to be learning how to read and write and do math. And and you have the authority to kind of rein in some of those I'll say distractions.
Yes. You also will advocate for legislation like I have up here, bills, and that's so whether you're in Wisconsin or outside, you can look at model policy, and through that could kind of help elected officials to draft legally, legal policy that would pass muster. And then parents can look at this and see if they want to advocate for certain policies. They can go to Will, and you're working with some other organizations like Southeastern Legal Foundation and Defending Ed and a lot of other nonprofit organizations in the whole education parental rights ecosystem. Help them to advocate for the policies that you can say when you go to your school board meeting or you go to testify. You can say these are good sound policies, and there's other states that have adapted versions of these policies. So here's a good springboard. And tomorrow in Wisconsin, to close out, there's going to be a Senate hearing on a teacher's Bill of Rights. So what does that bill entail?
Yeah, essentially what sparked this is that we have heard, we're not the only ones, but there have been news stories, there have been teachers sharing issues about classroom behavior and teachers lacking the authority and support to effectively manage their classrooms. So when there is a disruptive student or a disruptive incident, and maybe they send them out to an administrator's office, they get sent right back. And these teachers simply, it's impacting the other students. Sometimes it's impacting their safety. Sometimes it's impacting their ability to focus or learn. And excuse me, what the Teacher Bill of Rights does is essentially would require school districts in Wisconsin to have a policy that doesn't allow that to happen. It has the infrastructure for the right kind of disciplinary policy, administrative support, just to give teachers that backing to manage their classrooms, so kids can learn. It's something that a few other states have done, and it's something that we at Will have heard that teachers need more of. I mean, we're collecting stories right now for a larger project about teachers just feeling like they didn't have the support from their administration when they, sent a disruptive student out, or, sometimes even teachers are the ones that get disciplined.
Yep.
For disciplining the students,
Daniel Buck talks about that a lot, a former teacher, principal. He says the number one issues that teachers are retiring early and leaving their job for is safety, that they do not feel safe in their school districts, and they don't feel that the administration has their back. They don't feel like they have autonomy, that they're kind of, here's the curriculum, stick to it. You don't get to veer from it. You don't get to put your own input in. It doesn't feel, when you talk to teachers that have been doing it for a while, they used to love teaching, and they'd modify the way they taught based on the classroom they had that school year. And every classroom was different. Every year was different, a different makeup. And, they hone their skills. And then suddenly, like, I think this apparatus, even before COVID, just sort of took over. And that has to do, some of those mistakes were made under Bush. Some of those mistakes are, if you talk, you can't just point fingers. And I don't think we do say like, oh, it's all this is what happened and everything because of COVID. No, it's deeper than that. And I think the changes require a lot of institutional change, but you've got entrenched interests, including teachers unions and NGOs, and this whole, like, the whole apparatus, the funding, the money, it's not pro teacher, it's not pro child, it's not pro parent. So who is it for?
Yeah, I mean, what do people say? It's for the establishment, right? Like we've drifted so far away. We've drifted so far away from individuals, and we're so focused on this one establishment that it's actually hurting the kids and the families and the teachers too. You know, you mentioned teachers unions earlier, and how much are they fighting for the teachers versus being politically one-sided, politically active organizations, unfortunately, especially at the national level. The orgs like the AFT, NEA, you hear one side of the issue from them only. And I don't think that reflects the way many teachers feel.
And to close, because we've been talking for a while, now you're losing your voice a little bit. It's School Choice Week. So this is School Choice Week, and I know the Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty are huge advocates for school choice. So in closing, let's talk about school choice and what's the future of school choice. I know I was talking yesterday with Cory DeAngelis about the 20 states now that are taking advantage of the Trump savings accounts, or where the donations that people can make $1,700 for one, $3,400 for a married couple, and it's dollar for dollar tax write-off, and those funds are earmarked to help students pay for like private tuition if they want to go to a choice school, homeschooling, what have you. But governors have to opt in, and Governor Evers has chosen not to opt in. But
so far. I'm
Pressure.
not losing hope yet. I would love to see Wisconsin opt in, but we'll see what happens. And those can help kids in public schools too, by the way. I mean, public, private, religious, these are scholarships that would go directly to the kids. And like you said, Scarlett, it's a dollar for dollar tax credit up to $1,700. Like, this is such a good opportunity.
So if your kids are in public school, but you would like them to have tutoring, this can go towards tutoring.
You can go to tutoring, transportation,
lots of things. It's
therapies.
There are Democrat
care.
governors. The Democrat governor of Colorado said it's a no-brainer and opted in. It's a no-brainer. So does Evers not have a brain? I would say yes, but
I will not comment on that. But
I can.
Yes, I so want Wisconsin to opt into this, because if this is one of the big things, if we don't, our taxpayers can still donate and claim the credit, but guess where the money can't come? It can't come to Wisconsin students. So, you know, either way, we're going to have Wisconsin taxpayers available or, you know, eligible for this credit. But if our state doesn't opt in, it can't come to our students. And
my husband and I are going to max out that, because it's a dollar for dollar. It's a no-brainer for us. And that money is going to help kids in another state. And I wish it could help kids in Wisconsin.
Yes,
and
hopefully.
That's what, but it's kind of like with this kind of write-off, we'll take advantage of it. And frankly, like Cory said, we could let the government use it to pay for some more Somalian daycares in Minnesota, or we could.
Oh my goodness.
So
there's too much going on.
I get to say that. I know you can't. So I get to say that. So yeah, I don't want to fund the daycares, the non-existent daycares in Minnesota.
No. Give the money to families.
Yes, I'd rather help, because, you know, and there's so many good organizations. It would be great if Wisconsin School Choice could be one of those organizations. And that then, and schools, the other that I'll end, because we're getting at the hour, but what I learned is that if you already are a recipient of school choice dollars, like in Wisconsin, we do have a choice program. It's limited, but we have one. You can still get these other federal dollars, and it's just added. So
totally separate.
separate. So you can still you can receive that money that you get if you qualify for this Wisconsin school choice program. And in addition, unlike if something happens with the government, they'll just take it away. This money you can have in addition. So
yeah, and the other thing, I apologize if you talked about this already yesterday, but our state choice program, private school parental choice program, is income limited, and it's based on the federal poverty level. It's quite low in terms of who's eligible to get those, be in that program. The federal scholarship tax credit is based on area median income. So it still has that income limit in terms of which students can apply for the scholarships and receive them. But it's a lot expanded compared to our state choice program. So hopefully help even more kids.
Way different. So Cory, who's a research fellow on this, said it's 300 times. It's like some number, and basically where he lives in Texas, he's figured the median income was like 258,000. That means
Most families, yeah.
Yeah, a heck of a lot of families.
Mhm.
So this is not just low income. This is going to be middle class where there's two parents working, they're still going to qualify. And I really appreciate that, because I think school choice should be more universal. And there's a lot of suburban parents that cannot afford private school, or they could use little help. And this would be really helpful for them, especially considering when you look at the NAEP scores. And in Wisconsin, the proficiency scores are considered like they're doing cheerleading. They're literally just jumping if you exceed expectations, which means 50% of the kids in your district can read at grade level. That, to me, 50 is a F. That's failing. 90% is like an A minus. That's good. 95%, 50%, 60%. That's not good. That's unacceptable. But that's exceeded expectations according to.
I know we have a state Department of Public Instruction that has honestly lowered the bar to make these scores look better. But is that helping children?
No.
I would say no. And it also doesn't help parents, because it's confusing to know how your kids are actually doing. But Scarlett, if you don't mind, I would like to just mention that Will is going to host our 3rd annual school board summit coming up this spring, Friday, April 24th. So if we have anyone still listening, any school board members out there in Wisconsin, Friday, April 24th, save the day.
April 24th. Yes, I've been, and I've attended. These are great. These are great.
Thank you.
And there's no recording, right?
We'll record the sessions. There's no live stream. We don't record the Q&A. So if you want the full information, Q&A, access to all of the speakers, we bring in national speakers. We have all our Will attorneys present and our research director. Some topics on finance, and last year we focused on cell phones. So it'll be the things that we're constantly getting asked about throughout the year that we hope to address for the board members.
And when I went last year, I was sitting among a bunch of school board members, and it was a wide variety of political ideology, which was really nice. So come if you're just common sense school board member. You don't have to be Republican, you don't have to be conservative. Just come if you'd like to hear something that's different, that isn't just pure establishment. And if you're interested, I know I talked to a bunch of people that were like, boy, I thought, even when they met me, they were like, I thought everyone told me that basically I was like a demon witch, but they're like, you actually know what you're you care about kids. I'm like, yeah, isn't that interesting? When you meet people and you talk with them, you actually can have a lot in common, probably more in common than you think, especially education.
To your point about no recording yet, so Will records the sessions and we'll post them later. But the attendees are encouraged not to, because you can access them later, and we want you to be engaged in asking questions and everything. There's no media at this thing. But we encourage everybody to come here. We've gotten a lot of good feedback, and hopefully we can keep putting things out there that are like things that school board members can implement. Like tomorrow, you go back to your district, you have a few action items and things that can, make a little bit of an improvement at a time and educate you, empower you as a board member for those of us that are listening. But yes, Friday, April 24th.
Network and meet other school board members and find out how are you dealing with that's probably the
Huge.
number one thing I see, all the networking, like, oh, wait, how did you deal with this situation? Oh, and it's great. And unlike WASB, it's not, oh my gosh, it's not this whole political, like, how do we get more inappropriate books into that school library? It's real issues that matter, that make a difference, and that will make your school district better and make parents happier and teachers happier. And that's what you want in the end. And fiscal responsibility, all of those things. So I think, April 24th. So put it in the calendars. And if you send me any graphic, I'll post it.
Oh, yes, I will do that right after this. Thank you so much.
Well, thanks for coming on, Cory. Maybe I'll see you tomorrow if I can make it to Madison. And I will try.
Yeah, let me know. That would be great.
Okay, bye.
Okay. Bye. Have a good day.
Hi, everyone. This is Unleashed with me, Scarlett Johnson. Oh, I have my glasses on. I need to get anti-flare, like the glare, but I really need them to read sometimes. Presented by Moms for Liberty. It's been a day already. And I have special guest, Erin Lee, my friend and Mama Bear activist from Colorado. And I want to hear what's going on there. I just talked with Sarah Garriott yesterday, who led the effort in Washington State to put initiatives on the ballot because the governor and the state representatives, both these, I don't know, do you have like an assembly? We call ours Assembly and Senate. Do you have
Senate?
And but they're not on board. They want boys and girls bathrooms and boys and girls sports, and they want to have secret little what do you call it? Skittles like groups, secret little rainbow club groups with your very young minor children, where they talk to them about inappropriate concepts and basically propagandize to them about how much fun it would be if they were to identify as transgender. And they don't want you to know about it, and they don't want you to have access to your child's medical records. Yes, even in elementary school. So you are in Colorado. And your organization, you are trying to do the same thing in Colorado that just happened in Washington State. So, Erin, welcome. Tell us about your organization and what you're doing, and then a brief rewind. You've been on before, but talk a little bit about why you're so passionate about this issue.
So I'm in Colorado where it's the same insanity as Washington. Like I keep joking, although it's not really funny that we're the next Minnesota. It's a matter of time. Washington, California, Minnesota, Massachusetts, it's all the same playbook where we have, like you said, we have no representation in the House, the Senate, the executive offices. We haven't for over a decade. It's like we, the people, have no means to fight back against the insane legislation that keeps coming out. Like last year in Colorado, just to give you an example, they defined not affirming your child as coercive control and gave courts a license to take your kids away. Luckily, we struck that language, but it's back this year. And they also made it criminal to record the accurate sex on a death certificate. So if someone dies and you don't have their gender identity as their sex, then that is a criminal offense punishable with 4 months in jail. So that's
When
Colorado.
did they do that? I'm writing this down. See, I have to I need my notepad. When did they do that? I did not hear about that.
That was last year. It was House Bill 25-1109.
Oh my gosh, you're brilliant. Okay, hold on.
Well, I keep track. Someone has to, because they passed it so fast.
You do. Okay, I'm writing this down because I'm going to post about this, because if I do social media and if I don't know about it, there's a lot of people that don't know about it. So what was that bill? House Bill?
It's 25-1109. And I'll send you some clips of like Colin Wright and Jamie Reed. And we had some great people show up and testify, and they were laughing. Like they were laughing throughout their testimony because it was so insane that this was even something that was being presented. And it got really crazy in that hearing. One of the bill sponsors, who's like the queen of abortion in Colorado, which by the way, we have constitutionally protected abortion up into and after birth, taxpayer paid. So we are the worst abortion state. You can let a baby die on the table and the taxpayers pay for abortions here. And it's in the Constitution, so we can't really fight it. But that bill sponsor, who's like the abortion queen, also sponsored this bill and claimed that gender identities formed in the second trimester. So here she is aborting babies in the third trimester and after the birth, advocating for that. Then she also claims that you're trans at 16 weeks gestation, which is insane. But that's Colorado. That's what we're dealing with. Did
she say that? Did she actually say that out loud?
Yeah. On the record during the hearing at the mic while she was defending her bill.
Okay, you need to send me that.
I will.
I'm sure it was out. I did someone just wait
on. Well, you can't even keep up. Like they've had so much.
You cannot keep up. It's like, did you hear this? Did you hear this? It's insane.
It's almost laughable. Like Libs of TikTok, we keep Haya going. Like there's at least 2 posts about Colorado every single day. And I like to joke that we're like the annoying little brother of California where people don't pay attention to us. So we act out even harder. So oftentimes we'll pass bills in California will mimic. And people just go, oh, California's the worst. Colorado's like, hold my beer. Like watch what we can do. And no one pays attention to us. So they just keep doing it harder and harder and seeing what they can get away with. Almost like a litmus test for what they'll roll out to other states. And 2 decades ago, we were a red state. We were a rancher conservative state that got taken over by leftists. 4 billionaires bought the state. And if it can happen to us, it can happen to any state. Like you are not immune in Wisconsin and Arizona, and Texas and Florida. You got to hold the line. You got to pay attention to what's happening in states like Colorado and Washington, because they will come to you. And if we don't help us hold the line here, then it's just going to take over the entire country, these ideological laws that are just stripping our parental rights and harming our kids. So
they passed legislation that it is a 4-month jail sentence for putting the wrong sex on a death certificate. Right. So born a female and then claiming to be a male, like you have to. They dug up those bones, though. 100 years from now, guess what they'd find? We
rallied for a gender identity box. So we're like, you know what? We'll play your stupid game. Just make it a separate box for your nonsense, because this is statistical medical data. Like Colorado is going to be the first state that has an uptick in women dying from prostate cancer. We cannot mess with medical data, and they wouldn't do it because they demand absolute fealty to their ideology. Gender ideology is the state mandated religion of Colorado. And if we all don't abide by it, it's criminal. It's now criminal. This is a law that I'm suing the state over, my organization. It was House Bill 1312, which the whole country did pay attention to that, but it made misgendering and dead naming illegal. So if you won't call that man a woman, then just like Jack the cake baker, the state can come after you with penalties, fines, ask you to re-educate yourself, take courses. I mean, they've bankrupted Jack over this same issue, and now it applies to every single Coloradan. So I cannot call a man without facing potential lawsuit and penalties.
So that passed?
That passed. They all pass. We have no checks and balances.
What legislation is that?
That's House Bill 1312, 25-1312.
And they pass. So it is illegal to misgender.
Correct. Or dead name. So to call someone by their biological name, which is dangerous. Like, as I'm out educating parents about predators in our community, if they're trans identified, I can't refer to them as their legal name. And therefore, their criminal history is erased. We also have a bill, get this, they called it Tierra's Law. Tierra is a pimp. He pimps out children to dance sexually, like drag shows with children performers. So they named it Tierra's Law, and it made it so that if you're transgender, you can erase your criminal history. So you can legally change your name, and then all of your felonies they're expunged essentially, because unless you have someone's social security number, you can't look them up.
What is the reasoning behind that?
It's all about dignity of transgenders, respect for their identity. They have so many protections. It's unconstitutional for them to continue to pass these protections for trans identified people that the rest of us don't have.
So transgender is a super identity. You have more rights.
Right.
Like you have extra rights. Extra rights that aren't in the Constitution. You have rights that which I find interesting, because for those that are interested in the Oppression Olympics, more rights than if you're Black, if you're Hispanic, you're transgender, you've got those extra super rights, because I know there's not a law that says if you're Hispanic and you get to erase your criminal history, or if you're Black, you get to erase your criminal history. But if you identify as trans, I mean, that would be, for a bad actor, that might be a good gig to like just identify as trans and get your whole record erased if you just identify. And then, hey, that's kind of that would be something that a criminal mind would easily manipulate.
It's already happening in prisons. When we hear all these stories of women, inmates being raped by trans identified men, of course the men want to get out of the men's prison and go in with the women, and then they're raping and impregnating women. These are criminals who are using the system of trans identification to get into the women's prisons. It's already happening. It's not surprising. This is insane. Get this one. So like, trans is the sacred cow of Colorado. They passed a law last year. It's 1309, House Bill 25-1309, that forces private insurance companies to pay for any procedure that any one behavioral therapist deems medically necessary for trans identified people. So if you go to one counselor and the counselor says, oh, you're trans, you need, and they explicitly listed these things: breast implants, blepharoplasty, skin tightening, hair implants, full phalloplasties, hormones, wrong sex hormones. So a woman whose hormones are off balance, who needs testosterone to rebalance, has to pay for it out of pocket. But a man who wants estrogen, covered 100%. Or a woman who had breast removal because of breast cancer and needs reconstruction, she's not guaranteed coverage. But a man who wants breast implants, 100% guaranteed coverage. We're paying for it. And our state even put in a slush fund for tax dollars. So in anticipation of Trump saying we're not giving Medicaid funds for these procedures anymore, they created a slush fund to make sure that our state tax dollars are going towards trans procedures. So again, special rights that the rest of us don't have.
So in a reaction to, I think it was late December, HHS, NIH, they had a press conference. You were there, right? Were you at those press conference?
No, I wasn't.
No, you weren't. Okay. Sometimes everyone thinks I was at things too, when because I'm there at a lot of things. But Chloe Cole was there for sure. She spoke, and they discussed that they were that's the end of the Trump administration. If the federal government isn't going to fund these procedures on minors. So they're not going to fund, and I think it was just minors, or is it fund them at all.
It's just minors at this point, but I know
They're
there are bills working through Congress that are trying to strip the Medicaid funding.
Okay.
With the Crenshaw bill.
Okay, the
It
Crenshaw.
now sits with the Senate for that reason.
Oh,
All Medicaid funds.
yeah, no.
And it should be that way. And you know what's crazy about our bill here in Colorado?
I can't get breast implants just because I want them and have it covered by private insurance or government insurance. Like, why should their elective procedures be covered?
Oh, it's insane. Or again, like hormone therapy that women need after pregnancy. You need hormone balance. Well, you pay out of pocket for that. Insurance companies do not cover that for women. Now they have to cover it for men. Wrong sex hormones. And we tried to push an amendment to put
wrong sex hormones.
Wrong sex. Well, sex rejecting. I like that term.
Yeah,
too.
I like sex rejecting. I'm trying to use that more. But wrong sex hormones. Yeah, I like that. Sex rejecting.
And there's no age limit. So, and there's no requirement for you to be a Colorado citizen. So they're and I call this gender trafficking. It's a term James Lindsay, our friend, came up with recently in response to a meeting you and I were both at where we talked about this. And it's hard to define, but they're bringing kids over the state line because if you can get them here, then no other state laws apply. That's another law that they passed. So no custody agreements, no other state laws. If you can get the child to Colorado, you can mutilate them. It's taxpayer funded and it's done in secret. This bill also took these wrong sex hormones off the drug monitoring program and eliminated all the existing public data. So we don't even know how many kids are being brought here to be chemically castrated, and we're paying for it, and it's done in secret.
How is any of this legal? I just don't even, my mind, I'm not usually like, I'm like beyond aghast and angry. I'm like, I don't even know what to say. This is all so bad.
It seems unbelievable. Like when I go talk in other states, I was just in Florida this past week, and people are like, "That there's no way that's real." And I'm like, "Here's the numbers of the laws. Go look them up." I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but like
you need
this is happening.
You need to talk about this in Florida. You need because they can't get complacent. Iowa, you need to talk all of the red areas South Carolina, where I see really good people. They're very conservative, and when they don't have Democrats to fight, sometimes they end up unfortunately fighting each other. You need to go talk to them and say, there but for the grace of God go you. Don't think this can't happen to you. They're trying to put wedges so that you don't vote, you don't get involved, you start to tune out, and then they'll come right in. You think that the barbarians are at the gates, always. And you let your guard down and they're going to climb the walls. It's the orcs of, if you like Lord of the Rings, the orcs are at the walls and they're coming, and you've got to be prepared. But this scares me.
And they're deceptive. I, caution people that a lot of these bills that I'm referring to, it's not obvious. It's not like the trans your kids or we'll take them bill. They deceptively name it. They hide the language deep within, page 7, where they know no one's going to pay attention to it. And oftentimes in the case of gender medicine or wrong sex interventions on kids, they hide it in abortion bills. They call it legally protected health care. And so they get all of the liberal and moderate women to vote yes on these things, not understanding at the ballot and in the legislature that they're deceptively including child mutilation into the legislation. It's really deceptive.
Yes, this is very. I thought Washington was bad when I was talking to Sarah, and she was telling me they were successful in getting their we call it referendum, but their ballot initiative 2 years ago. And then back then the Washington state legislators, they confirmed it, everything. And then the state superintendent of education basically told all the school districts, you can't implement this. You cannot provide parental rights. You cannot follow this provision that went through all the correct legal processes and was legal. And if you do, I will defund you by 20%, and scared them all. And so they didn't implement it. And then 1 year later, they just gutted that legislation, that initiative. They just had to wait a year. They gutted it. And now they've had to pass it again. They had to get the signatures again. And now it's on the ballot again. And this time they know better. They've got their group, Let's Go with Washington. But she just described, and because I'm not from there, I can't go through. Listen, it's posted. We talked yesterday, and it's on the live streams. But she just went through every time. They just moved the goalposts. They changed the laws. They did things that I'm like, how is this legal? Everything they're doing, it seems just wrong. And I'm not a constitutional law attorney, but this all has to be wrong. And she said, yeah, but to go through the courts, it's years. And so they're just doing illegal things and waiting. They don't care if they're not getting in trouble. There's nothing how can it just be that there's nothing anyone can do?
Well, we are with the ballot measures and with the lawsuits. I've had multiple lawsuits against these laws in Colorado. It just takes 5 to 6 years. They know they can get away with it. And in the meantime, it's costly. You have to find people to plaintiff, which is very hard to find people to put their names. Like, to find a parent to fight back against these egregious laws is harder than fighting them. It's the most difficult element of fighting them, because people are afraid to put their name on it and to put their money where their mouth is.
What do they do to parents and families, like some of what you've gone through? Maybe now here's a good time. Talk about a little bit about what you went through and why it's been challenging. But let's put a positive spin. But look, you're here, you're standing, you're fine. Because I always like to have the encouragement. Yeah, it might be tough, but you kind of paved the way in some ways so that it's you forged a path that you've done something no one had done before. But now that you've done it, and a few other, it is easier because there's a support system and there are attorneys, and I think that's your goal, right? You're trying to make it easier so more parents can join, and they can feel like, yeah, this is hard, but it's not impossible, and you'll be better for it. But go ahead.
Well, I know you get that because you've done the same thing where you are, where someone had to step out on a limb and go first. And fear is crippling. I get that, but courage is contagious. And the worst thing that people have done is say bad things about me. I lost my job over it. It was a horrible job. I worked in corporate HR. What a blessing that God closed a door. It was miserable for me. Like, my career was not enjoyable. So in hindsight, I've lost friends. I've been attacked. We've had home break-ins. I get death threats. People call me horrible names. If you look in the Reddit for my town where I live, Fort Collins, and search me, it's not pretty. People really hate me here. Fine. I don't care what people are saying about me. And if people aren't talking about you, you're not really being effective, are you? We can't be crippled by fear of what people will say about us.
And there's a lot of people that love you, and a lot of people that appreciate you, and a lot of people that write wonderful things about you and respect you, and you speak and you receive awards. So there's a lot of people that have a lot of respect for you too, and acknowledge all that you do. So,
well, for every person that was removed, God gave me 3 more people who were encouraging, who pray for us, who are genuine friends, not surface level friends. Really, our life was kind of revived through this process because we leaned into it and said yes when things were scary and hard. And it started when my 12-year-old daughter was secretly transitioned in her 6th grade classroom by absolute predators, by this organization called Splash or Skittles. She's 8 different names. Skittles is her group for 2 to 11-year-olds. She works for our county health department. She's a foster parent. She's a caseworker. She's got a physical space. She's got a homeless shelter. She's in the libraries. She's a substitute teacher. She is funded by billionaires. She is well protected by the police. We have actual children who have been missing in our community, which she tried with me. They call CPS. They did that on my family. They try a well child check. If that's not effective, they coach the kids to run away. Again, it's that term gender trafficking that James Lindsay has coined. Like, that's what happened to my family when we were your normal, unassuming, leftist leaning, weak in my faith, just right for this family who would have been very easy to bowl over. And it was really my husband who stepped in and was like, no, our daughter's not a boy. We're not doing that. No, you're not coming back in my home. Child Protective Services. No, she's not going back to that school, and removed every bad influence. And it still took a year to get her out. She almost committed suicide because of bad laws in Colorado. And we were unassuming that forced the therapist to affirm her. That's now been challenged at the Supreme Court 6 years after it was passed in a case called Childs v. Salazar. But we didn't know that law existed. And so therapy made her worse and made her suicidal. And then her pediatrician made us leave the room because 12-year-olds are in charge of their own health care. In Colorado, that's another bill that was passed in 2019. It's 19-1120. 12-year-olds are in charge. And so the pediatrician affirmed her and prescribed her. And we were at threat of risk of losing our child for not going along with it. Thank God we didn't. Like, we evaded that. And that's why I speak up. Long story short, we're one of the lucky families. This happens a lot. Our stories are always the same. Quirky, quiet, artsy, or autistic girls who just don't quite fit in, starting puberty. Puberty sucks. And these predators came in and took advantage of her. She was connected online with them. She was talking on Discord with adults about running away, about how her family was not loving and supportive. Like, how evil is that? I sent her to public school and she came home confused, a boy, hating her parents, not trusting us, connected to predators I didn't even know she had met, that she's now talking to online. Like, how dangerous. And
that's so dangerous.
Fought back.
And so I was going to say, I would take all of the hate and scorn and, Reddit, if that meant saving my kid. So you've got the ultimate victory. You saved your daughter. You saved her life, and you rescued her and you fought hard. And so in that way, like, what you've done is just tremendous. I'm adding right now. I have here Meg, Meg Brock. Hi, Meg. I'm glad you could join us. How's South Carolina?
It's good. It's a little cold. Kids are out of school still, but it's good.
Because there's no plows.
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, I'm sure there's a couple in the state, but being from Pennsylvania, I'm used to snow plows and salt trucks everywhere, and it's definitely not like that in South Carolina.
No, it's not. But thanks for joining us. I'm just learning a lot about Colorado. That's like extremely shocking. Meg, you're an investigative reporter and FOIA queen, and so I'm interested. I know that you've written a lot about the issue of gender ideology and what's happening in states, what's happening with policy. And so I'm taking notes because Erin keeps telling me all of these things, and I'm like, I got to talk to, like, how do you, like, I can't believe all of this is happening. And so what is the most recent, what are in Colorado right now? What are you kind of dealing with right now? What is your mission right now?
Yeah, well, and I'm just to shout out Meg. She's written about our story in the CPS element and read some of my FOIAs, so she knows the insanity that's happening in Colorado. So I founded Protect Kids Colorado, and our primary objective right now is running these ballot measures. So same as Let's Go Washington. What's really cool about Colorado, in contrast to Washington, is that it doesn't have to go back through the legislature. So if we can get enough signatures to make the ballot, the people vote on it, the legislature cannot touch it. The governor doesn't have to sign it. It does not go back to them for approval or amendment. It becomes law and effective immediately. Now, the legislature can go back and try to chop and screw the will of the people with future legislation. I dare them, and see how we come after them and take their seats if they try to overturn the will of the people. But it's just stricter penalties for child sex trafficking, no boys and girls sports, and then stopping the sex rejecting procedures on minor children. And we're so close. We have 2 weeks left from today until turn in. So we still need about 25,000 more signatures. We're all volunteer. We're like all day, every day. We've got 1,800 people now all over the state carrying petitions. So we're so close. If we can get the signatures, we'll make the ballot, we'll win, and we will watch the dominoes fall in all of these blue states on these issues.
So 25,000 more signatures. So you're really close. And then you want to get a little bit over that because of a challenge, right? So how many do you want to get?
Yeah, 165 is our threshold to make sure we win. We think we have about 130 now. So really, I guess that's another 35,000 signatures that we need to get before turn-in day, which is 2 weeks away. But it's doable. It's never been done before. All volunteer. Usually this is a billionaire process. Let's Go Washington have the funding to buy the signatures. We didn't. And so we are all volunteer. We mobilized the church, the Catholic diocese put out a mandate. We just have so many people who have come behind us to make this happen. So it's actually feasible, but we're going to be pushing really hard.
So yeah, I think you can do it 25,000, and you're doing a lot of social media. You're trying, and then if you get, so what would happen? So you get the signatures, you turn them in, and you have enough. So what would happen next?
Mm-hmm. So it's about a 30-day process for them to discover which one, what percentage they'll invalidate, which is up to 30%. That's why we need to get more than that 125,000 mark. But then it goes on the November ballot for the people to vote as an amendment to statute. It's not a constitutional, it's a statutory amendment. But again, these are like 90-10 issues. So it's just a matter of if we get the signatures, we make the ballot, it will pass, it will become law, and Colorado will take a huge hit on the chin because much like Washington, they've been in charge for decades, just passing insane law after insane law. No one's checked them on these issues. And this is the only means by which we have to fight back is this ballot measure process, which only half of the states even have. So we're lucky to have it in these blue states like Washington and Colorado. But it would become law effective immediately after the November vote. And I don't think they would be able to overturn it through legislation.
So Meg, what have you found in your FOIA research when you've been looking into what's happening with Colorado CPS? What are the things that you've discovered?
I mean, I haven't FOIA'd. I've tried to FOIA Colorado. Their FOIA laws are not very favorable. They're a little tough. But I mean, I did a FOIA a lot on in Ohio. There's a county in Ohio, and in regards to a federal program with a group of federal activists that worked with the Biden administration to really create and solidify a pathway through federal regulation for parents across the country to have their children taken away for simply affirming their sex. And that was we actually did at the Daily Calling News Foundation, we posted a 4-part series on that in October 2024 that really went into depth of how this group of activists had gained millions of dollars in federal funding to then pilot these programs in 4 different states and then use the results of their research to then influence if you remember, there was a regulation that was introduced in September of 2023 that basically prohibited not, quote unquote, non-affirming families to be foster parents. And built into that was a lot of these other regulations that are ongoing in local CPS agencies that really categorize affirming a child's sex as transphobia, as child abuse. And it's really horrifying when you lift that rock up and see what's underneath.
And, and I'm just pulling up, just looking even at your X account and right at the top, like in October, it took 2 years to obtain almost 2,500 pages of emails from the top gender medicine doctors and revealed that they knew the gender science was shoddy, but pushed these chemical sex changes on kids anyway. I like the term that Erin has used, giving wrong sex hormones and sex rejecting therapy. So even though you can prove, I'm sure, Erin, you've talked about this ad nauseum, even though the science has shown that this is, it's shoddy. We saw in December, we saw Dr. Oz and Dr. Marty, how do you say his last name? I'll say it wrong. McClary. he was one of the doctors that spoke, and then we had Robert Kennedy Jr. and there was a couple other doctors, and they said that the science is just, it's completely inconclusive, and that the studies that were done that they didn't even publish because the findings didn't work in the favor of those that support this transgender medicine, especially for minors. So, but yet they persist.
It's circular. The science doesn't exist because it's WPATH pointing back to WPATH, which is a membership organization, and they're using absolutely debunked scientific method and theories. So it's circular science. It really doesn't even exist. Of course, there's not enough research to support these interventions being life-saving. We know they're not. I've personally experienced that it's the opposite, that the impossible pursuit to change your sex causes suicidality, that mutilating your body irreversibly causes suicidality. It's not non-affirmation.
Meg, you're a nurse, you're a registered nurse. Why continue on this path if you're a person, like you're in healthcare, like your job is to help people that are sick and make them better? Why do you think they continue?
Well, I think one of the biggest problems is that all the medical associations, I would say all, but many medical associations are still completely captured and completely moving full steam ahead on this ideology. And so when you have people who speak out, I think of Dr. Heim in Texas, I mean, look what they did to him. They really tried to use him as an example of what the system would do to somebody for daring to speak the truth on this issue. And for those who aren't familiar with his story, I mean, the DOJ came after him. They were threatening to put him in prison, all because he spoke out about transgender sex rejecting medical procedures that were ongoing at a children's hospital he was working on, even though the Texas legislature had already banned them and said they couldn't do them anymore. So, I mean, I think that's a big reason. I think there are probably far more healthcare professionals who understand that this is wrong and this shouldn't be happening. I think a lot of them are scared to speak out. I also think that these organizations tend to be hijacked by a small group of activists. And if particularly in medicine, if a doctor doesn't have expertise on an issue, they're going to typically refer to someone who does. So when you have a group of activists that have positioned themselves as the experts, then I think there is a hesitancy to overstep that so-called expertise, even though, to me, I mean, you're cutting off the breasts of teen girls. You would hope that would motivate people to say, just a little common sense. But I think we all have recognized that common sense is not as common as it used to be.
And so like going through the billing codes, that's been something. So what are ways, because I talked to Dr. Heim about this too, and he sent me some files that I just don't have the medical background to decipher. And so I'm getting some help, but ways that these procedures are coded make it difficult for people to know what's happening. Even if you're in a state that says, oh, we've, like the Children's Hospital of Wisconsin, we're not going to be providing this care to minors. Well, how do you know if some of the coding can be deceptive?
Yeah, I think people need to understand billing codes. There's two types of medical billing codes. There's ICD codes and there's CPT codes. ICD codes are diagnostic codes that are published by the World Health Organization. CPT codes are procedural codes that are published by the American Medical Association. And so these codes are used not only for insurance billing, but they also create a large data set that is used with research. So a lot of times, if you look at a research study, they'll mention billing codes because that's how they can keep track of things like, for example, precocious puberty. How many examples of precocious puberty or of during COVID cases or whatever, so that's how they're going to track that information. And so what can happen, and the Texas, Ken Paxton down in Texas, the Attorney General down there, has already filed 2 lawsuits against sex rejecting doctors alleging that they were improperly using billing codes. So if there was a child who needed puberty blockers, for example, the only FDA approval for puberty blockers is precocious puberty, which is having an early puberty. Outside of that, it's not FDA approved for use in children. However, it's possible that if a gender doctor, for example, wants to give a 10-year-old, 11-year-old, a 12-year-old puberty blockers, these medications can cost tens of thousands of dollars. So it's unlikely the child's going to be able to afford them without insurance coverage. So the DOJ is investing gender medicine doctors and hospitals throughout the country and has filed more than 20 subpoenas. Now, most of these subpoenas, many of them are being challenged in court. In some of those court documents, the DOJ has pointed out that they've seen a spike of precocious puberty diagnoses happening at ages 10, 11, 12, 13, and beyond. And why that would raise a red flag is that you're typically not going to see children diagnosed with early puberty at an age when puberty is normally occurring. So for a piece I recently wrote, I spoke to several endocrinologists, and they all seem to agree that, yeah, you're going to probably put a child on precocious puberty blockers for true precocious puberty before ages 8.
Yes.
So you wouldn't expect a child who is 10 or 11 or 12 going to normal puberty. You're not going to pause that because there's nothing precocious about it.
Yeah, 12-year-old is I like 11, 12. That is we like I menstruated at I believe like late 11. So did my mom. That's not considered precocious puberty. That might be a little earlier than some, but precocious is like 8.
Yeah, so I think that's a big question mark, and why the DOJ subpoenas are so important, because if the DOJ was to say, for example, these diagnoses that they flagged go into those patients' charts, well, if it was precocious puberty, there's lab work, there's medical diagnostic assessments that you would expect to see indicating that that child had that diagnosis. If those things aren't there, then you can make the case that this is probably fraudulent. But these subpoenas are being blocked in court, and I think that we really do need transparency and clarity to see what's going on.
Well, Erin was just telling me, and she could go about House Bill, I wrote down 1309, forcing private insurance companies to pay for any procedure. Can you explain, tell me, like, if you haven't heard this, how can they do that when they're considering executive orders? And I don't know, can they do that? Can the state force private insurance companies to pay for elective procedures?
State can do whatever they want for as long as they can get away with it, which is the pattern here in a state like Colorado, where yes, we'll challenge it in court. It's long, it's lengthy, it's costly, may have to go all the way up to the Supreme Court, which takes 5 to 6 years. So they just kind of do what they want. That's indicative of like the marijuana law that was passed here first, where it was federally illegal, but they thumbed their nose at federal law and said, we're going to do it anyway, come and get us. They get away with it. And we, the taxpayers, we, the people who pay into the private insurance companies in Colorado that are now fleeing and raising our premiums to astronomical rates, we pay the price for that. They get away with
All
it.
in America. If I have United Health Insurance. If the United Health is now paying for these procedures, forced to pay for them, they're going to raise the premiums on all the people that use their insurance, the companies, because they have to make up for the fact that they now have to pay for this in Colorado. So everyone will pay more for health insurance. And that's an outrage to me that we pay pretty high premiums for insurance. We have a large family, and it gets higher every year. But that now I am funding something that I shouldn't, because it's elective, and I find morally, ethically, religiously repugnant to me. That's shocking.
And for children, and because there's no limit.
Yes, for children.
Yeah, and for children who don't even live in the state of Colorado, as they covered. You can get them here, we cover it.
You just have to go to Colorado. You could, a kid from South Carolina, Wisconsin, Iowa can just a minor
Correct.
without parents?
Correct. Because again, 12-year-olds steward their own healthcare in Colorado.
I just don't. I'm blown away.
Insane. And there are some other really scary elements. Like
On so many levels, I'm just blown away. How can this happen? How can nurses, doctors go along with this? How can politicians? How can adults? I just don't understand. I mean, where do they recover from these procedures? Who takes care of them?
Mm-hmm.
Well, there are no codes for detransition care or for care after you've been mutilated. But to Meg's point about the medical industry, what I've learned in talking to a lot of doctor friends is that most doctors are removed from this. Like, gender medicine is such a specific niche part of medicine that it's really easy to be willfully ignorant and apathetic and just turn a blind eye as a medical provider when it's just not something that they're exposed to on a daily basis.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big part of it.
Yeah, my son's he's in medical, so he's starting his residency soon. And when I talked to him, he's like, I really don't like, this is not an area of medicine I ever want to be involved in and disagree with. And they like kind of thinks, I'm like, and I say, you think you can shield yourself from this, but if this goes the wrong way, 3 years from now, if we have someone different in office, like I'm not sure there'll be a lot of places you can go where this won't impact you in some way.
Yeah.
But even with the medical records, or even if I know when we were in Pennsylvania, a lot of offices, you walk into the office and if your child is maybe 12 or 13, they might hand them an iPad and have a questionnaire, and that questionnaire might ask about their gender identity, might ask if they are confused. So it's even, even people who are in the delivery care system who might not have anything to do with gender medicine are being made active participants in having to ask patients for this information. And I think what's so problematic is that we know that kids are very impressionable. Adolescents are very impressionable. So you could have a child who gets this seed in their head, and maybe it's something they never really thought about, and then they go on their phone and all of a sudden their TikTok or Instagram algorithm is like, yeah, you know what, like 12-year-old girl who just got asked this question at the doctor's office and now is thinking about it, maybe you are a boy. Maybe you need to reach out to your school's local, GSA club and find a trusted adult who you can talk to this about, and the trusted adult's not mom and dad. So I think that all of these things, when we think about the gender pipeline, a lot of it really is happening. The initial questioning, the initial seeds are happening at schools. They could be happening at a medical appointment. And that kind of then gets fire or grows through the warm soil of the internet. And then the next thing you know, you have a child who is maybe a 14-year-old girl and she wants to cut her breasts off and make this decision that she has no capabilities of making, and is asking for something that's deeply unethical.
I think like a lot of people will move. I know you relocated from Pennsylvania to South Carolina. There are many that have said, like, I've got young kids, I need them to be in a different school system or job, like whatever. But if they have to relocate, they move to Florida, they move to a red state. Erin, do you think that the same is true for those who are very progressive, very woke, that they've decided, I have to leave Florida to red here, and they moved to Colorado? And so there's these entrenched states that are just wildly progressive. Like it's starting to look like insanity.
1,000,000%. I did the opposite. I moved from Florida to Colorado when I was a lefty for that reason. And now it's like I have to stay here and fight it because someone has to. Again, we're a litmus test. So goes Colorado, so goes the nation, or as goes Colorado. someone has to stay here and fight. But yes, like I see Texas license plates all the time. The progressive people from the red states flee to states like Colorado, and we're the only blue state around in this Western region. They do come here. Like Jamie Reed has said that when she got her clinic shut down in Missouri, all the doctors moved to Colorado because of the legal protections that fortify their ability to do whatever they want with children with no consequence. They've even eliminated civil course of action for detransitioners outside of Colorado. So they're just, protected here, and they are fleeing here for that reason, but it's still happening in the red state. And I can't caution people enough that, especially on what we're talking about, that gender trafficking side, even if it's not in law, Child Protective Services, family court, the legal system, they've all been hijacked. These NGOs, the medical organizations. And so whether or not it's explicitly in law, it's still happening to families who won't affirm their kids because it's policy, it's practice, it's regulation. And that's what's happening in all 50 states. If you won't trans your kids, you'll lose them. I just talked to a family in Florida last week that this was happening too. So you're not immune in Florida.
So, Meg, I know that's the CPS issue. You wrote about foster care. We talked about that. You did the deep dive. Is this something that you've done research on? Is this on your radar? CPS, Child Protective Services, and trafficking kids, basically, even out of red states?
I mean, one of the stories I did was an in-depth story with a family from Maryland whose son was taken from them, and they never end up getting him back. So, I mean, I think that, to Erin's point, that and that was where the focus of our research was really on the kind of tastemakers, for lack of a better term, if you will, who are then creating these social services intervention. I'll call them tools. That's what I say they're tool. It is ultimately a tool. And trainings, and these are the things that then get passed down to your county CPS. So part of our investigation, there were these implementation sites of this radical research, and one of them was in Ohio. So you think Ohio is a red state. Ohio is a state that passed a bill to stop sex rejecting interventions. You wouldn't expect to see this total hotbed of affirming CPS services happening in the red state of Ohio. But I actually found that the local CPS, through FOIA, I got a database, a spreadsheet where they were tracking families who they had a program called Safe Identification. And so if I haven't accessed this part of my brain for a while, so to think about this here. But basically, they had the whole thing online. They took it down now. But the social worker, if they were called out to a family, let's say the child confides to the social worker, hey, I think I'm a different sex and my parents aren't affirming me. Well, then the social worker could make a mark and have this safe identification worksheet where then they would track that in a database. So it's on their radar of like, okay, this family, even though they could not be called out for anything related to that. I mean, who knows why they were called out, but they could then track on this database, this family has a child who might need, or hey, these parents aren't on board. They might need this special training to help them become affirming. And you think about how crazy that is, that the government could tell families, particularly families, a lot of times in what I've researched is there's a particular focus on religious families. So really targeting families who they know have a religious conviction amongst just a biological conviction that men are men and women are women, and specifically targeting those families. So this issue is a cross-section of so many violation of rights, of religious freedom, of medical freedom, of parental rights, of freedom of speech. Like, that's why I really think it is, in the midst of so many important issues going on in society, perhaps the most important issue, because if we can't define what's blatant in front of us, then how can we define anything else in society and have any clear rights? Like, you can't really have freedom without truth. So if we disattach truth from society, then how are we going to have the freedom to raise our kids according to reality?
Erin, I know you have to go. Closing, first of all, please send me. I have notes, but could you send me today like the bills and the legislation that you were talking about, like just because when I do some posting and talk about this, I want to have all of that correct. Thank you for coming on. What closing, how can we be of help? You have 2 weeks left, and final words.
Thank you. Yes, all hands on deck for the ballot measures. Anyone who has a pulse and knows 10 people can be part of helping us make the ballot. So they just go to protectkidscolorado.org, O-R-G, and sign up to carry a petition or find where to sign one or donate. Every $5 gets us one signature. Again, we are so close. And what happens in Colorado will have a ripple effect all over the country. It's really important that we get these on the ballot. So protectkidscolorado.org.
protectkidscolorado.org. Donate. You don't have to live in Colorado to donate. I'll donate today. Give something to help, because that'll help their efforts. Let's get them 25,000 plus so that they have more signatures than they need, so that, because they, unlike Washington, this is a surefire path that this becomes, they don't have to put it on the ballot. It becomes law. So that's really important. Thank you, Erin, for coming on and for blowing my mind. And wow. Keep fighting.
Thanks for having me.
Bye.
All right. Bye, ladies.
So Meg, so I got you can't have freedom without truth. That's so true. But in Ohio, and it's you would not think Ohio, but that they're identified. Of course, it makes sense that they're looking. They're trying to find these kids and target them. And like you said, then they can get caught up in kind of an ecosphere.
I think one of the biggest things for people to kind of wrap their heads around, and it can kind of be difficult because it seems so removed from what's real, but there are activists out there who truly believe what they would call transphobia. So really, if you're saying a child I just use the example of, like, let's say a 13-year-old girl who thinks she's a boy. Let's say if you won't affirm that she's a boy, there are activists out there who would say, well, that's transphobic. You're being transphobic, and believe that any form of quote unquote transphobia is actual child abuse. They see it as child abuse. They see it as an adverse, an adverse event that a child faces. So when you label that as abuse, then it carries all the ramifications of actual child abuse. Like, obviously, if there are children being abused, we want to protect them.
Yeah.
We don't want them abused. We want them. There are situations where children really do need to be removed from their homes because they're not safe. The situation of of parents affirming biology is not one of those situations. Now, to be fair, if there is actual child abuse, like let's say a parent is not giving a child a place to sleep or not giving them food, but I would say that's already covered in child abuse law, right? So those are all things that you're not, as a parent, allowed to do to a child because it's abusive and neglect. So to be clear, any of those things, whatever the reason, should be handled as abusive, because it is. But we're talking specifically about the only quote unquote crime a parent has committed is refusing to adopt this radical ideology and affirm it in their child. They are loving parents. They are wanting to work with their child. They're wanting to help their child. They see their child is deeply confused, and they're trying to help them. They're trying to bring them to a therapist who will help them reclaim their identity. So it is a very, very dangerous and precarious thing where we have a situation that could very easily swing into some really dangerous territory for parents across the country.
And so, your most recent piece with Daily Caller that we wanted to talk about. So the unearthed data makes Pennsylvania's puberty blocker payouts look sketchier. So you said 220 claims for puberty blocking drugs were reimbursed for minors 10 to 13 with this classification of precocious puberty. And that's a big increase from, it says here 2012. Then I'm looking, you
Mhm.
probably not looking, and I'm looking at the graph, and you can see just by the graph
Mhm.
some of those increases. And that is something that the DOJ has. They have sent out subpoenas. They want to know more.
Yeah, so the DOJ has sent subpoenas to specific providers, and in two of the legal documents, like I said, a lot of these subpoenas are being challenged in court. And in some of the legal documents, they brought up that they said that the DOJ alleged through an analysis of insurance claims, they found a spike in precocious puberty diagnoses happening for children ages 10 and up. So they outlined these in some of their documents. And so what I did is I asked Pennsylvania to provide me how many children, I asked for, they wouldn't provide the specific age, but they were able to provide an age range of how many reimbursement claims they've had for puberty blockers using this one specific code that was brought up in some of the DOJ subpoenas. And so what the data that they gave me, and this was statewide, this wasn't for any specific institution, but what's interesting is they found that like there weren't any reimbursements from 2010 to 2012, and then you saw between 2013 and 2017 a spike in the use of this code attached to puberty blockers. And I spoke to several doctors behind the scenes, and I was told that this is something that you would expect to see the spike in the use of a code in something like an infectious disease, right? So you think like when COVID happened, obviously before 2020, we weren't seeing any diagnoses of COVID in the insurance database, but when COVID happened, you saw a spike, and that probably went down as time progressed. And that's typical in an infectious disease. And something like precocious puberty, which is an endocrine disorder, it's stable in overall it's stable in the population, unless there's some big environmental event, which I don't think there's any indication that that's happened. So you wouldn't then expect to see the specific code go up in use because this is for a diagnosis that's stable in the pediatric population.
Wow. And so then so the DOJ is investigating billing fraud involving Pennsylvania. So this is just one.
This was in Pennsylvania. Yes, correct.
So you could say that if there's something a little, your spidey sense is going off, something off going on in Pennsylvania, you could imagine that that's something that's happening in other states.
Yeah, I mean, I think we just really have no idea, right? I mean, there have been attempts, do no harm. They created a Stop the Harm database where they went through insurance claims, but they were using the diagnoses specific to gender dysphoria. There's about 5 diagnostic codes that are typically used to code for that. And what's interesting is that a lot of clinics, if you read their documents, will have talked about the numbers of their growth, of how their patient populations have significantly grown from the 2010s to now. And if you go through the Do No Harm database, I think that from talking to people, some of the numbers they found were not as high as they might have expected, and specifically maybe not as high as what some of the gender clinics themselves have talked about with their growth. So I think there's just a lot of questions, and this is really why the DOJ investigation is so important, because there's a lot of things that we don't know, and we really do want to know about the billing practices going on, about the codes being used, about any potential fraud. I mean, the one chart in one of the DOJ subpoenas was saying like kids as old as like 14. I think there was one who was in a Boston Children's subpoena, a child that was diagnosed with precocious puberty at age 22, if I'm remembering correctly, but over age 20. And you think like that just doesn't really make sense. So that's why there really needs to be some clarity and transparency.
Especially now that the Trump administration is coming down hard, saying that we're not going to provide federal funding, federal dollars for sex rejecting care for minors. That would mean that there might be some ways that some people that they think they're doing the right thing, like you said, they would not call it unethical. Mm-hmm. They think it's purely ethical. I'm saving children. Mm-hmm. I'm saving their lives. What wouldn't you do to save a children's life? So I have to fudge or figure out a coding system so that these kids can get the care that they need. I can totally see it, that this is something that it's good to keep an eye on, because I think there'll be more of it. I mean, some of the stuff, and I wasn't aware, because like talking with Erin, can't be aware of anything. There's just always so much going on. But that there last year was passed HB 251109, 4-month jail sentence if the wrong sex is put on a death certificate. So, or dead named, that gender identity, according to a state representative, that by the second trimester, a baby knows their gender identity. Same representative was a leader and instrumental in passing a bill that provides abortion after birth in Colorado. So, which is,
that's confusing.
That's very confusing. It's very confusing.
Yep.
They know in the womb, but you can abort them. They apparently have such self-awareness that they know their gender identity, but you can abort them even after they're born. That's not abortion, by the way, that's murder. That it's illegal to misgender or use a dead name. It's illegal, fined, and civil prosecution. I mean, this is.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with the, particularly on documents, and we had talked about this a little bit more in healthcare, is that it's actually really important when you're providing care to someone to know what their sex is, because there are differences in how men's bodies and women's bodies work and how they react to certain treatments, to medication. I mean, that's even a big thing in clinical trials. You know, there's like a push to get more women involved because how a woman's body reacts to a medication might be different than how a man's body reacts to a medication. And then you think about just different diagnoses of something that could be wrong that's specific to your sex organ. So I mean, the whole thing is just very problematic. And I don't really think anyone should be forced to pretend that someone can change their sex. To reaffirm gender identity too. I mean, whenever people hear that word, just know that it's talking about feelings. All gender identity is how someone feels about their sex. It's just a feeling. So you think about what is more real, what carries more weight, something that's real, something that you can see, touch, evaluate, or your feelings. And I think we all have feelings. We all know that our feelings can be deceptive. That's why we live in community. That's why we have friends. That's why we have family, to help us process our feelings. Feelings aren't a bad thing, but we all know we can be deceived by our own feelings. So it's so insane that we're building all of these laws or these ideas and these policies really just based on someone's feelings.
And so if you're a nurse doing an intake, patient comes in, you're in Colorado, what if you're afraid to ask? Looks like a dude, but dressed, maybe has nail polish and using a female name. What if you're afraid to ask, like, well, what's your, or to say you're a man, so we should run tests like that. I mean, what if you can't say those things, because then you could lose your job? It's criminal. And you just have to go on and treat this dude who could be so mentally ill that, yeah, they want to be treated the exact same way that a female should. And then you're not providing the care because you're too afraid to even ask the right questions.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I said before, it's why this is such an important issue. If we can't define reality, it's going to make it really difficult for us to define anything else. So, to your point,
it is. It's hard to even understand what's going on. And before you go, I know we're looking a lot, I think, with the reality, then we see what's happening. I don't know I know you still keep an eye on in Pennsylvania, but right now with teachers unions, and I posted a lot this last night. I actually made an account on Blue Sky and did some searching, like my own investigative as much as I could. And their teachers unions post that from not all teachers. I don't even think a majority, but some of these radicalized teachers saying everything that I've learned from NEA, I've learned from ACLU, and encouraging these walkouts this week, encouraging talking politics and talking about these issues to your students, encouraging for them to resist. I have videos, even in my home state, of elected state members of our assembly that they are leading kids out and kind of chants telling them to call representatives to go protest at houses, basically to dox, to do all these things. And if they see an ICE agent, an armed federal agent, to what do you do when you see them? Fight back. And they cheer, fight back against the Nazis. These are teenage kids, and you are telling them to fight back and resist armed federal officers. I feel like that should be criminal. It's incitement.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a reason why our test scores are so abysmal. Our children are not learning to read. I think I think teachers unions should probably focus on the grades of students and helping equip teachers to teach kids about math and reading. I mean, I know, queer theory, that's like kind of the point is to turn children into activists. And I think it's really sad. I think children should be able to go to school and love learning and not be encouraged to participate in activism or be guilted into participating in activism. They should be hanging out with their friends and playing sports and joining the drama club,
And you're
and making, sorry.
You're from Bucks County, Pennsylvania. What are some of the things that you saw as far as teachers unions and sort of activist educators? I know that the brief period we were in Philadelphia, how do they react to parents that, like you, that kind of fight back, that call out what's happening and say, like, this is wrong, get back to educating?
Yeah, I mean, how I got involved in public records was during COVID, and I found a lot of, there was an op-ed, for example, in our local paper of one of the leaders of the local teachers union really calling for people to disregard the advice of our health director, who is trying to get children back to school. And I think about that time, and I think that I learned a lot from it. I think we all did, how there were so many of us who were saying, hey, we shouldn't be closing schools. We shouldn't be forcing children to have these prolonged quarantines who are healthy. This is really going to have a negative impact on their mental health, on their how they're learning. And now here we are a few years later, it feels like a few days. And there's all of
as you're watching, like, Minnesota, it's like,
it feels like a few days. Yeah.
All over again.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, those of us who were saying, hey, this is going to end poorly for kids, have been completely vindicated. The things that we were saying, there's all this data now to show it. And during it actually wasn't difficult to figure it out. I mean, I remember in 2020 thinking back to, well, what examples do we have in recent time of prolonged school closures, and thinking about what happened in Hurricane Katrina. And there was evidence that a lot of the kids who were missed school because their schools were physically destroyed for months, that had really bad repercussions for them into their adult years. So I think what we're seeing through now, I mean, it's not like we haven't seen the same emotionalism, the same tactics, the same calls for destabilization.
Yes.
I think everyone has the right to peacefully protest. I would fully support anyone's constitutional right to do that. I think what we're seeing is when you see these what appears to be people trying to obstruct federal agents from doing their job, I mean, that's really alarming and really concerning. So,
kids getting involved in, even if they're with their parents, first of all, getting involved with their parents about an issue they care about. Not now, if their parent decides, I want to pull you out of school and I want to take you to a Trump event, or I want to pull you out of school and I want to take you to a protest against ICE because it's important to me. The parent makes that decision. That's a parent's call. They are making that decision. For schools to talk to students, to lead students out of a classroom, and then to call on them to engage in political acts, and then to tell them to resist, that's a whole nother issue. That's different. Students can, I think, of course, attend events, have all that, but to be truant, I mean, because kids can't just leave the school. And my daughters are right now in school. They can't just walk out. The schools would call me and say, hey, your kid just walked out without permission. And if I say, well, they're not allowed, it's truancy. That you should be concerned. But here, I think that it's like, go ahead and do it. It's for a good cause. So that's great. They don't have to have parent permission. There's no permission slips. Can your kid leave school? Nope. Kids can just leave. They can just leave. And that's
well, I think when they, I know that I think it was Philadelphia announced that they're going to be closing like 20 schools. I didn't read it, but I read something about how homeschooling surging, how people are taking their children out of the public school systems across the country. And I think this is really points to why, because aside from the ideological concerns parents might have, kids aren't learning if they're out protesting. Like they're not learning and they're not being equipped to be adults. And that really is the core of why we have schools, why we have education, is that we want to equip students to be successful adults. So anything that's going to take away from that, those things should not be, in my opinion, shouldn't be happening in schools. That kids have the right to express their point of view, absolutely. But in terms of schools and teachers encouraging activism during school hours, I would say maybe even after school hours, I mean, that's probably a different issue, but kids need to learn. And so I think we shouldn't be surprised when we're seeing such abysmal reading rates and test scores.
Yes, that's not that they should not be engaged. If juniors and seniors, but if you are you're teaching government, something like that, and say like, hey, this is an issue. It's real. I think a good teacher would say, divide it in half. Let's kind of have this debate and then switch. Now you have to defend the other side. And whatever your beliefs are, I want you to dive into the belief of someone who thinks differently than you and try and understand it. That's what a good teacher does. And then doesn't tell them what to think, but kind of teaches them how to engage in critical thinking. And that sometimes we have to imagine, like, and of course there are extreme scenarios where I'm not going to say imagine that you're a serial murderer or something, but so it's different if to say imagine this scenario where you're just on different sides and you feel passionately. That to me is okay. That is civics. Juniors, seniors are old enough to handle that. I'm not saying that I want to have all these litmus tests in schools. I'm actually like kind of libertarian on a lot of these issues. I'm very pro free speech and don't want to limit what even 16 and 17-year-olds see. But I do think parents have the right to have an input, a say, and they are the ultimate deciders until a minor comes of age.
Absolutely. Yeah. I probably got to get going here. Probably like the next couple minutes.
I have to interview Ryan Walters next.
Oh, wow. Well, I always loved speaking with you, Scarlett. And
yes. I know your kids are home. Stay warm.
Yes, you too.
Thank you.
We're
Bye.
still probably warmer than you are in Wisconsin. So
Yes, you are.
cold
I
for
promise you that. All
you,
right,
Sue.
bye,
You
Meg.
need to say, well, all right, talk to you later.
Thanks
Okay.
for coming on. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Hi, everyone. This is Scarlett Johnson with Unleashed, presented by Moms for Liberty. And today I'm joined by my friend Alvin with Courage is a Habit. Gosh, Alvin, we've known each other for a long time now.
Yes, we have. Yes, we have. It's good to be on here. Thanks for having me. And obviously, always looking forward to sharing what we've got with the new state and everything.
Yes. And so Courage is a Habit is an amazing organization that provides actionable tools and strategies for parents to defend their children from indoctrination in K through 12 education. And when these are really good tools, lots of organizations will talk about what's happening. We'll go to policy summits and you hear what's happening, but then the big question for parents and community members is, well, what do I do next?
Right.
And you provide like almost step-by-step guidance, and you give them, here's a form, here's a sample, like really good and actionable materials. So I really appreciate that. And that's why I invited you to come to Wisconsin tomorrow for a legislative day. So that's going to be awesome.
It is. Anytime I get to speak in front of legislation and the lawmakers don't know. They don't know what's happening in K through 12. They have a very superficial understanding, even the ones that are on our side, even the ones that are aggressive, even though they're like, no, we shouldn't be indoctrinating kids. It should be about academics. They say those things and it sounds, obviously it's for the parent movement like ours and like yours, it sounds good. But if you go a little bit, one more layer deeper and go, okay, so what do you think's bringing in it? They'll say things like it's a teachers unions, which is not untrue, but they don't actually know in the system how it works. And so anytime I get a chance to talk to them, it's always an honor for me, for Courage is a Habit, and to share our deep research. And so hopefully we actually point them in the right direction. So we point their bills and laws in the right direction, because a lot of times these bills they think they're hitting the mark, but they're not. And then it kind of gives, and this, probably better than most. It gives parents a false sense of a false sense of security and a false sense of, oh, we won. And I'm sure Moms for Liberty saw a lot of that after Trump won. You probably saw this got people start to kind of pull back and say, yay, woke is dead. And things like that doesn't help our mission at all.
Nope, it doesn't. And these lawmakers, listen, they have to be jack of all trades, master of none. They're dealing with all sorts of legislation, from the budget to the environment to schools to regulation. So there's so much coming at them that there's only so much time they can devote. And that's where they rely on us. They rely on us to alert them to this is happening. And they actually really appreciate when we send them information, and when we provide organizations like yours, that you can provide them a lot of information and explainers, and then kind of take all of that information that they can give to their assistants and the people who work in their office, and then distill it down into here's a one pager. And you do that. So here's all the information. Here's a 1 or 2 pager that kind of helps the legislator to get those points across.
Yeah. The legislators, exactly what you said. They're dealing with so much, and they get so much information. Some of it is outright wrong. Obviously, some of it is correct. And it's the same thing with parents. The audience that you and I deal with generally have school-age children. Obviously, if you're in high school, it's a little bit different. But our audience primarily has school-age children. As any parent knows, when you have school-age children, that's a very busy time in your life. Yep. It's always, and it's time when you're running a household, you're raising children, you're trying to build your career. And so we always have that in mind, that parents don't have time to read 12-page white papers at a 10-point font. There's no way, because we always remember that it's not just about schools. It's about, I got to return my voicemail from my mother. I'm on hold with a plumber. I got to get a refund from this company that overcharged me. There's so many things in that time in your life that if we don't, and not only that, you've got schools lying to parents, gaslighting them. It's not happening. We don't do it like that. And so if we don't cut through all that noise and cut through their life and go, look, this is going to be real fast, but it's going to help so much. And not only should you do it, but give it to 5 other parents. We don't tell them, we don't put it on parents and say, if we only had 500 parents do it, that's too big of a number for an average person. Can you do 5? Can you do 3? And is that forward motion that we're looking for. And that's what our enemies do so great.
Yes.
Square. Who cares about black square? People put up black squares, they didn't even know what that meant because it was a low bar of entry. Who can't write hashtag trans rights or human rights? It's about creating forward motion, but our side is terrible at that.
Yes.
We always think these big things like we have to take down Soros. What are you talking about? Obama did this. What are you going to do with that? And so you have to understand that the people that we're talking to, that's the reality of life. And if we don't get them into forward motion, you're going to get 50,000 views on Facebook and 500 comments, and you get 2 people show up on school boards.
Yep.
That's not going to get it done.
Yes.
And one of the things that we always say at Courage is a Habit internally, you can't just create outrage without outlets.
That's a good point.
If you only create outrage with no outlet, you actually end up creating hopelessness, which is exactly what we don't want parents to feel, because this is not fake outrage. This is actually happening to your children in all 50 states. And certainly in Wisconsin, I'm looking forward to, speaking to all of you guys and showing you that, hey, it is deeply embedded into your, Department of Education. And so when we create this outrage, it's good, but you need to give them an outlet.
That's good. That's a really good point. Outrage without outlets leads to hopelessness. And, then you're just like, what can I do? And so looking at it as small wins, like in Army, one hill at a time, you take on you win one small battle and then you keep going. And sometimes there's a retreat. Sometimes I'm watching this documentary on the Revolutionary War, which is fascinating because I think everyone should watch it. It's the PBS documentary. It's really good. But I didn't even realize, and I was political science history major, all of the different the stressors that George Washington, the Continental Army was under. They'd win, then they get pushed back. But just kind of keeping that momentum going and finding, okay, what's the next strategy? How are we going to overcome this? Mm-hmm. And just staying in this and staying in the fight. So we were talking ahead of time because something that's dominating our social media is a small rural town in Wisconsin, New Richmond, Wisconsin. It borders Minnesota. A lot of refugees from Minnesota have moved there. And so it's a conservative area. Trump won this county and they showed up last year in a big way. Moms for Liberty's had tremendous growth in this area. Right. And they stopped the implementation of the Biden Title IX rewrite, which was, if people don't remember, 1,500 pages of just woke garbage. Yeah. And they stopped it. They came out, standing room only, several school board meetings, special meetings. And so the parents felt victorious. They felt like they won. Mm-hmm. There was no policy, no gender nonconforming policy. There isn't a non-discrimination policy that I can find that uses gender identity, gender nonconforming, how we deal with so-called transgender kids in bathrooms. But I was just made aware, as were many parents last week, that there is a biological male who, since November at least, using the girls' bathroom. Mm-hmm. And the girls at first did not tell their parents. And finally, this open secret came out. And now parents are outraged because they feel lied to and they just can't believe it's happening to them. And so what are your thoughts about this situation?
And now you said it was like a rural area, right?
Yeah,
like
a rural farm. A lot of the family members there, they have working farms. Mm-hmm. There's one professor of biology, but also has this hundreds of acres, cows, chickens. It is a more rural area. but they're close to they're very close to Hudson, some big cities that are right next to the Minneapolis border.
Oftentimes those districts get shocked, and we see it in all states, so it's certainly not unique to Wisconsin. Even to this day, we hear it won't happen here. And every time I hear that, my first thought is, then it for sure will happen to you, because you can't fight a fight you don't know it's coming. You can't dodge a punch and counter a punch you don't know it's coming. I don't care how good of a fighter you are. I don't care how tough you are. Anybody can knock you out if you don't see it coming. And that's what these cities go, no, we're red county, or we're very pro-America, or we teach our kids well. If you don't understand how the K through 12 works, then you're going to get that knockout punch. And that's what happened to this county here. Now, I haven't looked into it because I only saw the post, like, I think yesterday, like afternoon or last night, from Moms for Liberty. So I'll look into it a little bit before I get there, but I suspect, because I have looked into Wisconsin, obviously in head of preparation, to talk to the legislator and Will and all them. It's probably coming through the mental health, because your Department of Education follows the ASCA, which is the American School Counselor Association. And so for quick context, the American School Counselor Association is the organization that trains the majority of your school counselors and writes the mental health policies and the suicide policies for all K through 12, and the Wisconsin Department of Education follows them to the T. And so I don't want to get too off track here. So for those who want more information, just go to courageasahabit.org, courageasahabit.org, and click on school counselors. And the very first link will be the report that we released that will explain to you exactly why the school counselors are the biggest purveyors of the transgender cult. So back to this school district. So likely this child went to a school counselor and said, I feel like a girl, and da-da-da. And because the school counselor is following ASCA guidelines and they're trained by ASCA, they're immediately going to think, if I don't encourage him to use the girls' bathroom, he's going to kill himself. That's just how they're trained. And so remember, the school counselors aren't looking to follow laws. They're not looking at, the community came out, a few months ago last year, and the school board agreed that we're going to follow Title IX. They don't think of it like that. They're trained to be missionaries. The school counselors are trained to be missionaries. So they cannot wait. They can, especially in the rural area. And by the way, speaking of the rural areas, ASCA spends a lot of time, because we infiltrate them a lot. And, my co-founder, Jennifer McWilliams, she infiltrates them so much. And we see them always talk about how to get into the rural area. We're having trouble getting in. We're making some headway. How do we get in? How do we talk to them? So when you have a school counselor in a rural area, they cannot wait to get a trans student. That is like their homecoming. That is like their Super Bowl, because they've been trained to go, this is your chance to show what an ally you are, and you're saving his life. That is what they hear. But because in the rural area, you've got families that obviously are not fucked up. And so what happens is they don't get a lot of chance. Like if you're in a city like Indianapolis or San Francisco or something like that, or, Colorado, to really exercise that missionary training. So again, I haven't looked into this particular school, but if I had to bet, I would say it's something like that.
That's interesting. What do you think usually? So in the school board meeting that I watched several times, there was the board president that was vocal, but there was the Title IX coordinator from the back of the room kept talking like, this is the law. We have to follow the law. And we can't, just sort of a little more outspoken. What are the role of these Title IX coordinators in your experience, and not just in this area, but all over? Because they tend to be, in my opinion, my work, they tend to be like the priestesses of this stuff.
Oh yeah. I mean, I think you could say that about anything, whether it's a curriculum coordinator or a Title IX coordinator. Anytime you have blah, blah coordinator, they're going to be these woke white women. They're dumb as hell. Yeah. So I don't even have to ask you or no. I know exactly what she looks like, what she sounds like, how she talks. And so they're all missionaries. They all think that they know better. They all think that your children are their mission, that they're supposed to be pushing this towards a left-wing ideology. So when you're a coordinator in a rural area, when you bring these people in, you're bringing a fox to the hen house, because these people, obviously, she can't be as mouthy as, let's say, if she was in, California or New York or New Jersey or whatever, but she's a quiet poison pill. And she looks at, so this curriculum coordinator, the school counselors, the Title IX coordinator, the school counselors, they look at everybody there, all the families there, with disdain. They hate their way of life. They hate that they're all white. They hate that they're probably mostly Christian. They hate the fact that they love America. But they can't be too mouthy, because they don't have the culture in that community, that enclave doesn't support that. And so anytime they can start just talking about, oh, I don't know, we have to do this and we have to do that, and oh, it's just about making kids feel safe. Do we want a kid to feel safe? They can start moving people towards that. And as soon as they get a boy who believes he's a girl, then they need one. They just need one to start going, well, it's discriminatory. Well, he might kill himself. And then the emotional blackmail starts. And so they don't need a lot. They just need the one. And that's how they're trained.
So what can parents do? What is your advice?
Well, the first thing is you have to lock up your empathy, because there's only one, they're going to make it that the whole community came out against this boy, and they're going to tell the little kids in school and through the mental health and through social emotional learning, he's one kid. You're picking on him. It's bullying. And they're going to get all the kids to go, he's not really hurting anybody. I guess he can use the girls' bathroom. And that's how it starts.
Yep.
So what parents can do is, there's two things that parents can do. Okay. The first thing, the most important thing, is your mental and emotional guard. You have to lock up your empathy, because if not, they will use it against you. And especially in areas like that, that's a high trust area. Farmers, just salt of the earth people, they'll give your last bottle of water to you in an emergency. Those type of people are the greatest people to live next to, but they have almost no defense. They have no antibodies to fight against emotional blackmail, just because they are so kind, because they are such good people. So their immune system has no memory of fighting these kind of things. And so when someone comes with a sad story about a boy and a bullying and feeling belonging, and he's going to kill himself, these people are largely very defenseless. And it's very hard to lock up your empathy, because that boy is a victim, but the people pulling the strings are not.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing. And that's the hardest thing.
Yeah.
That's the hardest thing. And I don't have a shortcut around that. You have to understand that they're simply manipulating your empathy.
I think you have to picture the 300 girls that they're told to go to a single stall bathroom in the nurse's office. We have the emails that they are displaced because of this one boy. You have to picture, what about the girls?
Mm-hmm. You got to shift your empathy to the girls. And this is Marxism training. It's Marxism training, because you're training kids and the community that the collective needs to change for that one individual. That's what they always do. And so that's the first thing. The second thing is that parents, because you do have the majority, the board, and all that kind of stuff, this is going to sound really cruel, but it's not. And this is the only way to protect your community. You got to go to the parents and say, listen, this is your problem. This is your problem. If you believe that if their boy believes he's a girl, then get him some help. But that is not going to be tolerated in our school, in our community. And if that's not something you like, then you take him home and you homeschool. Because if you can't do that, if you let one, I promise you, in a year when you and I talk, that community is going to look different. They're going to have 5, and they're going to have them in sports, and they're going to have them in locker rooms.
It's going to happen in elementary school. They're going to start to bring in, because of all the intolerance that they're seeing.
Yep.
What's going to be next? The Wisconsin DPI will say, oh, look at those intolerant bigots.
Yep.
Guess who needs what's going to happen to the kids in elementary school who the parents are like, well, my kids aren't in high school, so they're okay. They're
Right.
okay.
Right.
What are they what kind of training are they going to start to give the teachers?
Yep.
And then pass down to the kids?
That's right. They're going to say, because they still do surveys, even that school does surveys because they have to, because they take the grant money. They're going to say, this school is really oppressive. This school is really racist. And we need, we're going to bring in a vendor. We're going to bring in a vendor for professional development to help you be more inclusive. And next thing you know, you're going to have kids marching with the flag, the trans flag. And what happens to that community, because it's such a small enclave, is those kids are now going to take it outside to your community. So that hardware store all of a sudden has a trans flag on it. And you're like, this hardware store has been around for 60 years, or that coffee shop or that bar that just, the salt of the earth people go to. All of a sudden, what's that?
The libraries.
The libraries. Oh, for sure. Libraries. All of a sudden, you're going to look up at your, favorite bar, and you're going to have this like weird looking androgynous young person that's tending bar. And you go, what happened? Well, what happened was 3 years ago, you allowed that one boy to use the girls' bathroom because, we don't want to be bullies. Yes. That's what happened. So in 4 years, when that community starts looking like closer to San Francisco, even though I'm obviously exaggerating, it's not going to happen in 3-4 years like San Francisco, but I'm just saying you're going to start seeing these types of kids and young people around your community, and your community in 3 or 4 years will not be recognizable. And everyone's going to go, what happened? And I'm going to say in 2026, you allowed that one boy, and that one boy allowed all this stuff to come in and indoctrinated all your children. Yep. And then they graduated and brought it into your community. So every time you feel bad about saying, I don't want to ice this kid out and their family out, what if he doesn't kill himself? Every time someone tells you that, you have to go, listen, we don't want anyone to kill themselves. I don't want anyone to kill themselves, even the people that we despise. Okay. I don't think anyone should kill themselves.
I don't celebrate anyone's
nobody.
Harm. This isn't about hate. This is about protecting our children and our way of life.
And I don't even say the word hate. I don't even say it's not about hate, because the second you say that, it almost validates them. I will say, look, every time, their kid's going to kill themselves. I don't say anything about hate. I say, look, nobody should kill themselves. But if a person, a child or an adult does that, that is an individual family problem. It's got nothing to do with us. It's got nothing to do with my daughter. It's got nothing to do with your daughter, your sister, your mother, your aunt. It's got nothing to do with that. If you truly believe, and I want everyone to listen to this in Wisconsin, in that area, word for word. If you believe your child's going to kill themselves, you better take them out of school and get them some help. God bless you. I wish you and your family the best. I hope he comes out of it and understands he is a perfect boy, exactly the way God made him. But if you truly believe he's going to kill himself, for God's sakes, please get him some help right now today. And he shouldn't be in schools. He should be getting some help while doing his education at home. But it's got nothing to do with my daughter.
And
that's it. That's it.
A warning, because you had to move. You were in a very woke area. So you're talking about this from experience. The parents from Washington State, the parents from Colorado, the parents from California, if you could talk to them, and I'm talking to not just the New Richmond parents, but if you are any area that you're in where you think this is not going to happen, or maybe the first incident has happened, if you could talk to them, and I have, they would say it started with one incident and we let it go. Mm-hmm. And we thought we wanted to be nice. We wanted to be kind. We wanted to be inclusive. Uh-huh. We didn't want to make waves.
Uh-huh.
And then what happens? So they wish they would have made waves after that very first incident.
The transgender child mutilation advocates will always say this: what's the big deal? Mind your own business. And here's the word. Here's the trigger word. I want everyone to understand the word just. It's just pronouns. Yes. It's just a sticker. It's just an equity statement. It's just words. It's just a piece of fabric when they talk about breast binding. It's always just until the child mutilate themselves, and then it's good it's happening. So when you hear the word just, it's just one boy. He's just harmless. He's not this. He is just about being belonging. It's just about anti-bullying. Every time you hear that, you're being gaslit. You're being lied to. So make a big deal out of the littlest things, because if you don't, these people will take the littlest things and completely change your community. And once your communities change, and I speak from experience, it's like a lot of people, you're never you can't roll it back. This is a one-way street. Once they change your community to this left-wing, anti-white, anti-America, transgender, gender focus, you never really roll it back. You really can't. I've never seen it. I've never seen it.
Yeah.
It will change your community forever. I don't care if you're a rural community. I don't care if you've been a farming community for 100 years. When they come and change it, they will change it forever. And that's the goal of the K through 12 education. So I certainly am very looking forward to seeing everybody and talking to everybody and all that. So no, I'm really excited.
Well, I think you continue to look in, because we really look forward to hearing your insight. I've already learned a lot, and that I can use. So you've blown me away. I've been taking notes. So this is really helpful, Alvin. And so thank you for coming on. And I'm going to talk a little bit more after you leave and show everyone your website.
Thank you.
Because it's really important that they see
so
this.
much.
But we'll talk some more tomorrow. Maybe we can record something in person. So I can't wait to see you. Have
Absolutely.
a safe flight.
All right. Thank you. All right. I'm looking forward to seeing everybody. All right.
Bye.
Catch you later. Bye.
That was a great interview with Alvin. I can't wait to see him tomorrow. Alvin said outrage must become action. And that's really sticking with me, because it explains exactly what we're seeing in New Richmond and everywhere else. Outrage without an outlet leads to hopelessness. Parents can get angry, they know something is wrong, but if they don't know what to do, that anger turns into resignation and basically silence, and they check out. That can't happen. We were talking about New Richmond, Wisconsin. The parents, when they learned that the 300 teenage girls were being told that the solution to a boy who recently decided he wanted to be a girl, grew out his hair and felt pretty, that the solution for his dilemma was to put him in the girls' bathrooms while all the other girls should line up for a single stall bathroom. They should miss class, they should be tardy, and they should quietly accept that their education and their well-being comes second. That's not compassion, that's compliance, and it's wrong. Alvin said something else. He said the parents need to hear this and to listen, that you cannot allow the school district to weaponize your empathy, or anyone else. He said, shut down your empathy when it's being weaponized against your kids. Empathy is being used as a bludgeon, he said, to silence girls, to shame parents, and to keep families from resisting. That doesn't mean that you can't be compassionate. You can still be compassionate and say no. You can be compassionate you don't have to be a bully. You have to have boundaries. Boundaries aren't cruelty. They're kindness. Boundaries are good. Boundaries with kids are good. Boundaries with adults are better. Protecting your child is not something that you should feel guilty about. And the parents of girls and boys in the school district, they can't stand for this. Parents are not powerless. If you're listening to this, and this sounds familiar in your district, here's your outlet. First of all, if you're not already, join Moms for Liberty. Go to Courage is a Habit, courageisahabit.com. A lot of resources for you there as well. Contact your school board members. Contact them in writing, email them, set up meetings with them. Be calm, be joyful warriors, be firm, be clear. If you're not getting the response that you want from school board members, at some point consider running for school board or helping out a campaign. In New Richmond, there is a Moms for Liberty endorsed candidate. Her name is Christy Westland. And so wherever you are, you can find her. I'll try and find some information about her to post. I know her Facebook site, her website, and help her out if you live in that area. And if you don't, help her out any way that you can, even if you live somewhere else. When parents show up consistently, then these terrible policies don't survive. Elvin said this is the opening salvo in a war that parents will lose if they don't fight back and fight back right now. It starts with this one boy in the bathroom. How many times have I heard that? Many. In states that are now as woke and insane as Colorado, Washington, California, there's Oregon. So it didn't just happen overnight. It started with one thing that parents overlooked, one thing that the community said, well, I want to be nice. I don't want to rock the boat. They let it slide. Before you know it, you can't recognize your school district or your community anymore. So fight for what you love. Fight for who you love. Remember who is paying the price right now, and it's the girls. If you have empathy to spare, put it towards those girls. That's what's important. They are going to be forced to stand in line, miss instruction. They're being told that their education is secondary to adult fear. That's unacceptable. Now, everyone needs to stay tuned because there's going to be a lot of developments about this story and so many others across the country, but in particular in the small rural town of New Richmond, Wisconsin, which could be any town USA. There's going to be some big things happening. And I hope it's a shining example of what a community does when they resist this woke, I don't know, I guess you could say this woke Goliath. No one's ever rooting for Goliath. And sometimes David wins. And in this case, I really think that David is going to win. Parents can make a change. And I know this because I'm living proof of it. Now, I'd be remiss to end this without bringing up Courage is a Habit right here. And look at this, all of these tools that you can use. So I really suggest that you go to courageisahabit.org and look at all that is available to you as a parent. Share this with school board members. Share this with teachers. This one thing we didn't have a lot of the time, but I wanted to encourage teachers, whether they are in New Richmond, Wisconsin, or anywhere USA, if this is happening and you don't like it, it's not partisan. This isn't partisan. You could be a feminist who fought so hard for Title IX all of your adult life, and you don't like what it's turned into. Say something, stand up, have courage. We need teachers to stand up, help to expose what's going on so that parents can have that transparency. You know, like we discussed, there wasn't a policy. They just did it. They just put that boy in the bathroom and said, we're following federal and state law, which is not true. They say they don't have a choice. That's not true. They absolutely have a choice. Now, there's some case law in Wisconsin that isn't the greatest, but it certainly doesn't prohibit the school from mandating that bathrooms, locker rooms, and changing areas are sex separated, and that is a zero tolerance, that there will not be a biological boy in a boy's bathroom or a biological girl in a girl's bathroom or locker room or changing area. They absolutely have the authority to do this, and the federal government under the Trump administration has issued several executive orders to that fact, and There are 10-day notices going out all the time from the Department of Justice and the Department of Education. So they're risking the loss of federal funds. Oftentimes they claim they don't care. Well, does the community care? I bet they care. So thank you very much for tuning in. And courage is contagious, and courage is a habit. It's a habit, it's a muscle. You need to flex it, and you need to find it, and you need to pass it on to your kids, especially our girls. There is a woke mind virus that has spread through many of our academic institutions, and unfortunately, young American women have just been hardest hit, and they've had their empathy weaponized. So we as parents, we need to fight for them. We need to strengthen their resolve. We need to do our part in developing their resiliency, and we need to fight, fight, fight. Have a good night, everyone.
Dear Nike.
Dear Nike.
Dear Nike.
Why won't you stand up for me? Why won't you stand up for me? Why won't you?
Why do you claim to support women and girls? Yet when we need you most,
you remain silent.
Today, males are claiming our identity,
our sports,
our spaces.
Men and boys are stealing opportunities, medals,
trophies,
and our future.
And it's not fair or just.
In fact, it's often dangerous. Yet you refuse to use your platform to stand up.
You say you're for social justice and progress.
So why do you allow men's rights to come before ours?
See, with a big platform
comes an even bigger responsibility.
You have a chance to do the right thing,
not just do the easy thing.
So we're asking you, Nike.
So we're asking you, Nike.
So we're asking you, Nike.
As the biggest voice in all of sports.
Will you stand up for me? Will you stand up for me? Will you stand up for me?
Will you stand up for me? Will you?
Will you?
Will you just do it?
In a few moments, I'll sign a historic executive order to ban men from competing in women's sports. It's about time. My administration will not stand by and watch men beat and batter female athletes. From now on, women's sports will be only for women. In recent years, the radical left has waged an all-out campaign to erase the very concept of biological sex and replace it with a militant transgender ideology. We're honored to be joined today by many incredible advocates for women's sports, including the brave swimmer at the forefront of this battle. And Riley Gaines is a person that I've been watching. In my action this afternoon, we're putting every school receiving taxpayer dollars on notice that if you let men take over women's sports teams or invade your locker rooms, you will be investigated for violations of Title IX and risk your federal funding. There will be no federal funding. With this executive order, the war on women's sports is over. We are restoring sanity and common sense, defending the rights and safety and pride of the American people, including our great, great, great female athletes.